talk about kind of how you guys split up and what your priorities are, whether it's, ladders first for egress and then, go up to the roof and kind of what you guys do. Mike.
There you go. I was having trouble with my mute there. Sorry about that.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah, so this thing's in my way.
That's got to be the first time Tora ever had trouble with the mute.
I have self-control, Jack, for God's sakes. We have two guys. So we have true trucks, obviously in the city. It's not uncommon for larger cities, I'm assuming. Two guys go to the roof, the driver and the guy who sits behind the driver typically. So a two-man roof team. If we're a second truck, one guy would go to the roof if the two guys on the truck, the first truck, need any help. We're talking pitch to flat roofs. I'm sure we got a lot of time today and a lot of questions. So if something comes up, by all means, say something. Like, by no means. I don't have all the answers, but how we do things. It's not the greatest answer. I'm sure people are going to ask.
Sit down and watch YouTube.
What's more important? Nature, but it is what it is. Hey, Josh.
Hello, buddy. How you doing?
Good.
Looking.
There's another guy. Tim, you could definitely bounce it off me. Josh would be the next guy to probably ask or Ty.
All right, I'm back. Mike, real quick. I know, again, just kind of based on what Chad and I were talking about earlier, what's your hand tool of choice when you go to the roof?
I was never – the city of Chicago is a traditional pick-headed axe. That's been since the inception of that department. That's what they take. We take a pike bolt to the roof, obviously, but I went away from that. I was using a flathead axe. I love the flathead axe. But I missed that pick head part of it. But I never really chopped. So I wanted something a little bit more lethal. So I went to, when the pig came out, when Chris Moran first came out with the pig, he was out at FDIC. I got one of his very first ones. It still has the
buddy
on it. So the pig is what I use up to the roof. I like it. It serves me the best, in my opinion. Everyone has their tool of choice. I want to try.
Do that, Chad.
I haven't got my hands on it yet. I really want to try the Reaper. It's a fire maul tool. I really want to try it. I demoed it, but I never really got a chance to try it besides drill. So I really want to give it a couple swings. But from the pig's kind of like my tool of choice to the roof.
Gotcha. Ty, what about you? How do you guys, kind of run and split your crews up? And then what do you carry for a hand tool to the roof?
Yeah, so by me, I work at a smaller department in Milwaukee County. And kind of the cool thing in the past, I would say the past 2 to 3 years, a lot of the suburbs in the city of Milwaukee have all adopted the same, like the high-rise policy. The Milwaukee cut is now the county roof vent cut. So all like the louver cuts that one away. Kind of cool. By us, it could vary. Greenfield, where I'm at, could vary. Ideally, the best way to go about it is 3 guys going to the roof if they are going to vent. For us, by when we get there, if it's our first do, I would be searching. Other things are going to be a priority, but we are like the second due truck and we're assigned ventilation, or we go to a neighboring community and we're going to assign ventilation. It's normally 3 that go to the roof to do the Milwaukee cut. And again, we've learned from the guys on the city of Milwaukee how to do that. I'd say the way I really like, nice comment, Chad. I really like that the pig, like Mike was saying. I love the pig and the pig. Like we actually, all the guys wanted it stocked on our heavy pieces, our engines and our trucks, so that's on there as well. But I love bashing when we get up there as well. So that's that. It's just a K12 and a 12 tooth. We use the Desert Diamond 12 tooth chopper blade. It's comparable to fire hooks. It's just a little cheaper, and that's why we went with it. And you can get it in a 14-inch blade versus a 12 for the 12 tooth, which is nice. So that's our go-to. But yeah, it varies. It could be 2 people up on there, and it could be 3. And then they just slide down the roof, or they straddle the ridge and they swap to the C side of the house if they cut. And then the big thing, like if you see videos or the guys in Milwaukee when they strip a roof, or if someone gets assigned there to strip a roof, the entire roof decking gets pushed off. So they'll make the cuts, and then the crews that are on the attic will end up pushing, the 1x4s or whatever, the roof decking off there. So that's all I got.
Oh, good stuff. Chad, you want to talk a little bit, just kind of what we talked about before, how you split your crew, and then, hand tool preferences, and then we'll move on to some other stuff.
Yeah, there's a lot of good people on here to give input on that, and what Torres already said lends credibility to what I would say, what John Young would say, and guys I've worked with. We split a 6-man rescue company into 3 groups of 2, just like you said you did, and 2 of them go to the roof. Most of our rescues do, not all of them, but typically there's times we show up before a truck. So we put, and that's another part, could be another part of this discussion, that we put enough emphasis on the benefit of vertical ventilation, depending on where the fire is in that structure and how many stories it is, that we're almost always dedicating 2 people off a rescue and 2 off that first in truck to get to the roof and do that vertical vent. So we do that. One thing, most everyone that works with me will take a flathead type of tool, any type of tool. It could be a sledgehammer, I don't care. I don't dictate what tool they take, but usually after 2 hours of training, if they were a pickhead person, just like Chicago and Kansas City still is, within a couple hours of training and getting shown up, they're like, let me try that. And you can usually, if you can get them on a roof, get them to put in a couple hours of sweat equity, you can usually convince just about anybody's mind what the best tool on that roof is. And for anyone that's done it, it's there's just no doubt that a flathead type striking tool is going to be the best thing on the roof. One thing I will ask my guys to do, we're real lenient on air packs. I don't tell my guys how to put a hole in the roof. We go and we train on it. I know they're competent. I know they can do it, but I asked them to take an air pack to the roof. I've been stuck on a roof. I've been climbed over the top of my back on a ladder by truck companies who didn't have air packs. So I asked them to take an air pack to the roof and a chainsaw to the roof. We use chainsaws. We don't really do the Milwaukee cut. So they take their striking tool of choice and a chainsaw and an air pack. If they throw it off the back of the roof, I don't care, as long as I see them go up with it, and they're not going to throw it off the back. They'll hang it on a pipe, put it on the chimney, whatever, and at least they got it in case they get their ass kicked with plywood or 1x3 layers of roof and then plywood and 2 more layers of roof. There is no axe in the world going through that. So there's times when you have to have a saw, whatever your saw choice is. I was curious to ask Ty a little more, or for Ty to say a little more. I've seen the Milwaukee cut. I was probably with Ty when I saw it. I saw the guys from Milwaukee do it years ago when we were doing the Brotherhood class. And very effective, very efficient, especially on a roof that's really steep and you can't walk. I really liked it for that. Never had the opportunity to do the Milwaukee cut on a fire with the rotary saw or chainsaw. But I was curious, as if Ty, you said that's all. If that's all you do, you do that on every single roof, even when you can walk it. Is that still all you do? Is the Milwaukee cut? You just perfect it. You're good at it, and that's your go-to.
Yeah, that's kind of been how it's gone to. But truthfully, though, like by us, not every house gets cut. Not every house needs to have a vertical vent cut. Like a single-story ranch, like on our department, we're going to put the personnel on the hose line, and we're going to put personnel on the search, and we're going to rack out a bunch of windows and call it a day. We just had my shift just had an apartment fire, and it got into the roof, and they didn't vent. They actually just pulled the ceiling, put it out with the hose line there. They cut a hole in the side where, like, it was a weird add-on roof where there's like an added-on gable, and they kind of cut into there and then spray. But they actually didn't do the Milwaukee cut. So not every house gets the Milwaukee cut. Obviously, City Milwaukee, I can't speak for them. I can only speak for my department as well. But by us, it's not every single house, no. But it's effective. In my opinion, I think it does become a little awkward if you're like on a 5-12 pitch or something that's walkable. But again, when we ask questions, to the guys that've been on the job for a while, that have more time on and that have been doing it longer than I have, or some of the other people, it's just a safety factor. A lot of them like being on that roof ladder as a safety factor in case something does go. At least you're supported from the ridge down to the soffit if something bad happened. But again, is it necessary? I don't know. Every department's different to a certain degree, but What about G-Ron? I see G-Ron's in here.
G-Ron, are you there?
There we go. I'm unmuted. Yeah, what's up? I just finished cutting my grass. I'm still sweating.
Sexiest man in the fire service.
They don't have grass in Gary, Indiana. Let's be honest.
They have grass in Valparaiso, a lot of it.
How's the number 3 fairway?
It's 16, brother.
Oh, you're on 16 now. You've moved up.
Yeah, nah, I've been here.
Oh,
Well, you know, I got here a little bit late because, like I said, I was cutting the grass. But because we've dropped our staffing down to 3 on everything, and we only get 2 engines in a truck and a fire, our vertical ventilation has almost stopped. It's got to be actual, you know, a need or an emergency, if you will, for vertical ventilation before we do it. We just don't have the people. We have to commit at least 2 people to the search, so we just don't do it. We just don't do it that much anymore. We used to do it a lot. You're supposed to be talking.
Hey, so I guess as we kind of talk about reduced staffing, we've gone from Kansas City and St. Louis and Chicago guys to Gary, who's started to kind of cut some staffing. What about Jared? How do you guys run it? How do you guys prioritize your roof ventilation? I know you do go to some roofs from time to time, as we talk pretty frequently, and a captain as well. So how do you prioritize? When you have the manpower and who goes and when they go and why? Give us some of your thought process behind that.
Can you guys hear me okay? Can you hear me?
You're a little quiet.
How about now?
You're 2 inches closer.
So I'll just talk really loud. Is that better?
Yeah, that's good. That's good.
Okay. So for us, our last fire that we went to, literally, my chauffeur got on the roof and cut by himself. It was about a 612, so it wasn't steep at all. He was literally by himself the entire time. A mutual aid company got there a little bit later, just in time to drop the roof hook in a hole that was already there. But for us, staffing obviously is a big deal. If I can get my outside vent guy up there with him, that's the goal. If ladders take priority, we're going to try to accomplish both. So those guys are split. I'm going to put one guy on the roof. I'm going to put one guy on ground ladders while we search. For us, if it's a walkable roof, we just go straight to the dice cut. With the exception of a house that's got a knee wall. If we know that it's got an upstairs that has a knee wall application, we'll go straight to the Milwaukee cut, because we can get that top attic, we can get the livable space, and we can get that knee wall section with that one cut. It's highly effective for that. We get all 3 spaces. So any hidden fire, we're automatically on top of it. If it's super steep, then we divert to the Milwaukee cut, and it's a minimum of 2 guys. Can one guy do it? Yeah, maybe, but it's not going to be effective at all. So that's kind of our go-tos, is the dice on shallow and the Milwaukee on steep, barring a knee wall application, and then we go straight to that.
Yeah, we do the exact same thing. How about anybody, there's a lot of people on here, 30 some odd people. Anybody have any questions or anything that they want to start talking about before we, just let Torres ramble for an hour?
so what have you guys talked about so far? I got here late myself, so you talking about vertical cuts and stuff like that? Is that where we're at so far?
We kind of talked about, how a couple different departments break their crews down, and then, some hand tools of choice and things like that. But we haven't really got into the where and why and how. I just want to make sure we direct the conversation in a useful format rather than, just having people kind of ramble and rant.
I did hear, you're talking about the dice cut. You could talk about the different types of cuts. Well, even hand tools. John Young over here, well, over here on my screen, he took a piglet to the roof. I thought that's the stupidest thing in the world. But he's cut more holes than, I bet he's in the top 6 people on our job for cutting holes, and very one of the most effective people. And when he explained why he liked the piglet, well, yeah, it's a flathead. We're already sold on that, but we're so aggressive that a lot of times we're barely using roof ladders. We're just punching holes to shove our feet in. So if we do fall, worst thing's going to happen. You're going to break some bones in your foot, but you're not going to go off the roof. But a lot of times he's cutting holes straddling a ridge, and so you don't have the opportunity to get a full swing with that tool because you're swinging shorter and shallower because you're swinging down the slope instead of up the slope, and that made complete sense. So it worked for him. And who's to question someone that is that effective with the tools? He also really, in the last few years I worked with him, really got into louvering on almost even on houses, because most of our stuff, it may be 1x4s and it may be 1x4s with plywood on top, or it may be ripped off in plywood. But the louvering technique that he put a lot of effort into worked for him an awful lot. And then when it doesn't, I've heard John say this, I've heard other guys say this, Paul say it, as for the bash method, as opposed to the cut method that seems to take quite a bit longer, and I think most people agree with it. If you have to, just bash a hole and make it bigger. Especially when you end up with 2 or 3 people surrounding it, you can bash a hole and make it bigger. It'll happen within a minute or so. You'll have a 4x4 hole if you're using flathead type tools. But like I said, there's some other people on here that would lend some credibility to those techniques, and it's not always good that we don't have roof ladders up there. We get them up there eventually, but someone usually gets up there and starts working a lot of times without it.
Well, Chad, I think you know more people on this call here than I do. So why don't you kick it to somebody else and have them kind of weigh in on their thoughts?
Hey, John, you want to unmute and talk about your louver cut, where you think that is beneficial versus take a vent and bash a hole and make it bigger?
Did I unmute?
Yeah, you're good.
All right. I like what Torres said earlier about the pighead axe. That's kind of why I landed on the piglet for me personally. It's 6 pounds instead of the 8 pounds. It has a pick that I use to bash my holes when I can't bash with the bigger end. If I hit once or twice and I don't put a hole in it with the big end, then I'll just flip my axe over and poke a little hole and then work my way up from that. So before I came to work for Chad on the rescue, I was on a truck company, and the way we would do it is the driver and his firefighter would go up to the roof, and almost always, well, most of the time, we would straddle the peak and face each other and swing below the ridge. Right or wrong, safe or not, people are going to say what they want to say. That's just how we did it, and it worked for us. What I found with an 8-pounder and the pig itself was that pig is so skinny that it was real easy to bury down by my feet in some shingles that I couldn't get it out, or at least I struggled with it. I didn't like it. So with that little curve on the piglet, it just works better for me. And it's a shorter handle, all of the things that Chad already said. So I think what you're talking about, the louver thing, Chad, it's kind of hard to explain, but I like to get up with a chainsaw and I'll parallel the ridge. I'll bury the tip of the chainsaw and I'll parallel to the first 2x4. As soon as I touch the first 2x4, I turn it straight up and down and go just on the inside of that 2x4, and I make my 4-foot cut. I don't make the horizontal cuts because the horizontal cuts are already there. It's a 4x8 sheet of plywood, and you don't really need to make those horizontal cuts, at least in my opinion. So I make that vertical cut inside the 2x4. I move over about 15 or so inches because it's usually 16 inches. So I move over about 15 inches and I make another one. And as I do that, I'm moving over, I skip over the next 2x4 right next to that. And as I do that, my partner will smash what I just cut and the whole thing falls away. And it has been argued that it falls straight down and it gets in the way of the attic and pushing the ceiling down. I've never, ever, not one time ever had that happen. It kind of cantilevers away from you. And so it doesn't go straight down and get in the way. At least it hasn't for me. So then I do that again, make another hole. My partner follows me, smashes it. And then I go over to the third set of rafters and I make it again. If I was taught, again, right or wrong, this is how I was taught. If smoke's still chugging, pushing hard out of the hole, make the hole bigger until it starts wafting out. So it could be a 4x4 hole, it could be I could take the whole roof off. I've done that, it just depends on the fire and how much smoke there is. And that's my whole goal, is getting the smoke off the guys, just like you guys. Just get it off as fast as you can. Torres and a couple others have talked about, what tools we use. I was taught by some old guys in the inner city, axes. If you use a saw, you're a pussy. That's complete. I don't agree with that at all. My goal is to get the hole in the roof as fast as I can with the nozzle going in at the same time. And sometimes that's an axe. Believe me or not, like Chad said, you can smash a hole with an axe in less than a minute. And we've done it several times. So that's faster than dragging a ladder up, or maybe 2 ladders if I'm going to do the Milwaukee cut, which I have tried that and I love it. It's a great technique. But you get up there and smash the hole in with my nozzle crew. If I'm a couple minutes before my nozzle crew and I have time to use a chainsaw, then I'm all for it. Or if I'm on a roof that I can't bash in, I'm all for a chainsaw. Absolutely. So if there's any old school salty guys that are still with that mindset of, if you don't use an axe, you're a wuss, I don't think that's a good thing to teach young people. That's a whole lot of rambling. That's my 2 cents.
Hey, that reminded me of something communication wise that I would have as my driver. Was my driver and he was on the roof. There were that John is putting a hole in the roof as fast as he can. But sometimes you get hard set on, I'm going to chop this hole. When I know they took a saw to the roof, because I asked them to never go to a roof without a saw and an air pack. And I literally told them, you can throw it off the back, but if I watch you climbing a ladder, you better have a chainsaw and an air pack to back you up. Other than that, you do the job however you see fit. I find myself on the 2nd or 3rd floor of a house, and there's times, and John will probably laugh when I say this, that I'll say, hey, we got a hole going. It's getting hot in here. There's no reason for me to say that other than I'm telling John, hurry the fuck up, because I'm about ready to have to turn my back on a couple bedrooms here. If you can't get
going as fast as I can, damn it.
But that might change his mind. I'm going to put the piglet away. I'm going to fire the saw up. We're all going to gang up on one hole instead of 2 holes. But yeah, that's some kind of spoken, unspoken communication that we would have when things got tense. So we're all going to gang up on one hole instead of 2 holes.
Turn your hearing aid down. It's got a lot of reverb in it.
It actually does, Chad. Something has some background noise or something's going on. So it might be.
All right.
Unless there's another microphone somewhere close to you.
It may just be the voices in his head.
I'll shut mine off for a minute.
Yeah, so I've heard one of the things that we've talked about for a couple times now is getting a small hole open. And I've noticed a few times being on a roof with guys that maybe aren't there as frequently. They'll go cut a 6 foot by 6 foot outline of a hole, and then everybody kind of stands there and looks at each other and they're like, well, what are we going to do now? Because it's real tough to clear out, and you've already cut all the decking, and that huge hole is already made. We always try and whether it's a 2x2, and then we'll go a little bit bigger, and then we'll go a little bit wider, and then we'll go a little bit bigger, and then we'll go a little bit wider. But we always try and make sure that that we get something open really quick. And then we can always make it bigger and wider as we see, you know, smoke conditions changing and things like that. Anybody have any thoughts on that as far as, you know, what hole size, you know, for a residential fire, you know, we're all taught 4x4, but you can't just cut a 4 foot by 4 foot square. Anybody have any thoughts on, you know, kind of where you start size wise based on conditions and
Yep.
you know,
Let me add something to that, please.
please.
The day of the 4x4 hole is over. I mean, it's just over because the UL studies, the fires are not burning hotter, they're burning faster. And if you're, depending on if you're paid 3 to 4 minute response time versus a volley, you're getting there and you've got a little more extra work to do because it's ahead of you and stuff or whatever. But the day of the 4x4 is over based on the way things are burning. So it's kind of, you know, we've got our engine companies now, they're learning to stretch quick, going to tank water, getting a positive water source and everything like that. And, you know, our ladder companies are getting there probably about the same time, maybe, you know, ahead of them or something like that. It doesn't matter because I can still cut a hole even before the line's stretched off the truck, because if it's 512 or less, and this is my crew, I'm not speaking for anybody else. This is what I teach my guys. This is what I teach out on the road. This is what I've got in the manual for Lexington I've written, is that our first cut is 4x8, and it's going to be a dice cut. The head cut's going to be cut super fast. You're going to plunge your bar straight down, vertical. And the thing about it is, when you're vertical, is that everybody in this group right here has cut a truss in two at some time in their career with the saw. And so the reason for that is think about how you're dragging your bar across. You're dragging your bar and only a small piece is touching that, the face of that 2x4, 2x6, or whatever it is you're dragging it across. So when you take your chainsaw and you plunge it in and you go forward and you pull back toward that first truss, you've got more surface area that bar and that chain's going to hit. You'll feel it every single time. Roll it. Now, what I tell my guys to do is to score right above that on the shingle to mark where that truss is. Now, if you're working in smoke, which most of the time we are, you're not going to see that score, but that's okay, because here's what you're going to do. You're going to say about 8 feet, you're going to go across and you're going to come down with your down cuts. If you can't see the score marks, it's okay. Cut in between where you think there are, because they're still going to stay on those trusses. They're going to be able to be louvered. You're going to do your bottom cut. This is a super fast, this is a West Coast cut. It came from the West Coast. Sac City, Stockton, all those places, they're doing it. LA City has a variation of it and stuff, but it is a super fast cut. That's why we went to that cut. That's why we went away from the 4x4, because we're not getting a hole big enough. You've got to let the box breathe. I've got to get the heat off the victims. I got to get that shit off of my crews that are stretching the lines, and I've got to get it off the guys who are pushing in for the search. Now, if I start with a small hole, then I'm going to have to work harder to get it open. So if I go with a 4x8, that's 32 square feet versus 16 square feet. So if I wanted to open it, and let's talk about a gable roof, because this is the kind of cut we're making on a gable roof. All the energy is going up toward the gable, versus on a flat roof, it goes up to the ceiling. What's it do? It spreads out. In a gable, it goes up and it spreads horizontal through one gable to the other end, because that's where the energy is. So it's not really such a big deal that I want to open below that and open it up. I may want to go over and continue with another 4x8, or on the other side. Doesn't matter. I've got to get it opened up energy wise. Now, we don't use a roof ladder, because that's a walkable roof. We can cut it fast enough. I'm not a fan of roof ladders anyway, unless we're doing something 612 and greater. But you've got to get it opened up. What if I do cut that hole before the engine stretches? You know what? It's cut. I haven't pushed, pulled, or anything yet. My guys are waiting. As soon as they hit the door and stuff, we're punching it. Now, what if they lose water? We close it back up. You know, they can back out or whatever, because everybody has to understand that when you open that hole in that roof, it has to be coordinated with that engine company. We've all heard that, but there's a lot of people that blows my mind that don't understand what that means. If you don't coordinate it, you're going to intensify the fire. It's going to get bigger. It's going to spread through the attic space, because you've just introduced it. And here's another thing that kills me that people don't understand, especially chiefs on the ground. I have been pulled off of a roof because of this. I have opened a roof. It has belched black smoke and it starts burping fire because it's unburnt fuel and it's getting oxygen and it's starting to light off. Well, then it all of a sudden takes off and I got 10, 15-foot flame. I can feel the heat coming off of it because it's eating me up. Chiefs are pulling us off the roof because they think, oh shit, the whole fucking attic's on fire. No, the whole fucking attic's not on fire because it's too rich to burn in the attic. That is a vent ignition right there, vent hole ignition from there up. And guys don't understand that. Now, if I'm opening the roof and I'm cutting and there's fire coming around my blade or my chain or where we're pulling with our hooks and stuff, yeah, you got a fire in the attic then. It's running the attic space. So the way these fires are burning fast-wise, and I was talking about engine guys, and I hate to do that since we're talking truck stuff. I'll have to take Benadryl here in a minute because I'm talking about it. But engine guys are stretching faster because they're taking these classes to stretch these fucking hoses faster and faster and getting the water on the fire quicker. For a long time, I am not a fan of 2 in, 2 out. I think that's bullshit. I am not a fan of the second due engine company pulling a backup line. I've never seen a backup line or heard of a backup line. You guys may have. That has absolutely protected the first line. I think it's bullshit. I think the first engine company stretches that line as fast as they can. The second due engine company, somebody's establishing water, those 2 engineers, but there's 3 other people coming and they're getting that first line into operation quicker to knock the fucking fire down. Because, it is what they say. More lives are saved with a properly placed hose line than anything we do. But I always add this. It's got to be in the right hands of the right person, pointing at the right direction and used correctly. Because I've seen people waste water. I've been burned up like a lobster before because of guys doing that and stuff. And it's just horrible. Now, if you've got these guys stretching quick and they're doing their stuff that they've learned from Aaron Fields or Jeff Shoup or the Elkhart boys, or it doesn't matter, and they're stretching quick, we've got to be a little bit quicker on our game as well. Because a lot of times they're stretching in some places. It doesn't matter if we're down the street 2 minutes down, they're stretching a line off the truck because they've been practicing on it. We're having to throw ladders and go on the roof with saws and stuff. You better have your ass in gear starting to cut that hole. So if you're cutting a 4x4 and they're already stretching, you're already behind. You're already behind. Go ahead and make it big. People say, oh shit, we're cutting too much of the roof. Fuck the roof, because the thing about it is we're opening it for us and the victims. And if they have insurance, they'll pay for it. If they don't, shame on them. We'll cut the whole roof off if we have to. So my opinion, starting out at 4x8, and you got to make those. I know a sheet is 4x8. And a while ago they said sometimes some people don't cut that, but I cut it because I don't believe in my crew working harder than they have to. And so if they don't have to work as hard as they have to and they have manageable pieces, they'll open the roof quicker. So you can go left or right, opening it more. You can go down, opening it up more. But how do we tell if it's opened enough? Well, the guys inside are going to tell us if it's lifting, if it's hot. Like Chad said, if you can't get the roof open, I can't make these rooms because it's too fucking hot in here. We're going to be able to tell, if you've got a guy on the roof who can read smoke, volume, velocity, density, and color, and it still looks like it's hell coming out of there, and you're checking guys inside, go ahead and have your guys start extending and making it open, so it doesn't matter. When it comes to a flat roof, guys have to learn length, the short way and the long way. You've got bays and stuff, and we know we want to open more bays up. We want to use anything like skylights there that's already there and everything, but that's a whole different thing. But when we're going to a gable roof, we pretty much know what we're dealing with. We're going to a flat roof. You should step off, go. Everybody on your department is probably different there. I like to step off, have a guy go 6 feet to the right every time because that's where our inspection hole is. I'm going to figure out what kind of roof it is, if there's any smoke. Always going to use a flashlight even in the daytime. And then we're going to sound it all the way out to where we cut and stuff. And we're going to make little cuts as we go to see where we're at, depending on the smoke, depending on what we're getting out of it and stuff. So I think the fire service back when I started in 86, and Chad started in like 50 years ago. So, but 86, it was nothing to have an axe on the roof because that was pretty much where I'm from. that's all people did. And up in the Northeast where the partner saw and everything started, they were using saws and all that. And then as time goes, we've gotten better with tools and everything like that. I'm not trying to take too much away from this, but just work smarter and not harder. Manageable pieces, get it opened up quick. Oh, go ahead and cut your roof. Don't punch it until the engine's ready. If they lose water, something happens, you can close it back up. But that's the good thing about truck work that I like versus engine work, is that I'm thinking 3 to 4 steps ahead of the next thing we're going to do. And you have to do that with truck work. So, and when do we find out the roof is too steep? You know, it's always steeper than it looks from the ground. And when do we find out? When we get on the fucking roof. So if you can't tell your pitches and stuff like that, you may find yourself in trouble. And metal roofs, real quick on a metal roof. Metal roofs that people are putting on their shingled roofs, they're putting on new houses and stuff. The 461 with the RDR chain will cut through that. It's a light gauge steel. The only problem you have cutting that stuff is walking on it. So you will have to use a roof ladder on that. And so it will cut through it. You don't have to have a rotary saw or anything like that. So my 2 cents is the bigger hole, the better to start out, since the way things have changed nationwide with engine and truck work.
Josh Webb, why don't we go to you, bud? Go back to the original question. Thanks for pitching in, Art. What do you guys start with? What is your SOG on a roof?
There we go. You hear me? You can hear me?
Yeah, you're good.
Okay. SOGs, SOPs about roof work, we don't have any. I mean, we don't have anything written, you know. It's just kind of passed down from guy to guy. We run, you know, typically 4 guys on the truck, sometimes 5. The manpower staffing's good. And we always split those trucks. So our first arriving truck will split up 2 and 2, 2 to the inside, 2 to the roof. Unless it's some kind of special situation where we're getting reports that there's, you know, multiple rescues or something like that, and we skip over the roof, the second truck in can grab that, and we'll just go in for a search. If that's not the case, then again, that first truck will go to a roof. Second truck will come in and try to access the rear. You know, Louisville has a lot of alleys. Damn near every street has an alley that we can access, at least downtown and to the west side of town, the east side of town even. And like going to the roof as far as tools, I mean, hell, when I started 22 years ago, I mean, we didn't use roof ladders at all. It wasn't even a thought. You know, we would throw our ladders for best access to that roof. We could, you know, climb up a valley, or, you know, throw it to the peak, or, you know, whatever, and walk that up and cut our hole. Saws came in probably about 2 years after I got on, and since then, yeah, I don't want to cut a roof with anything else. Piglet, no, I'll take a saw every time, you know. And I'm pretty familiar with saws, so going up there cutting a hole, like Arthur was saying, as far as size of holes, I mean, we just fucking cut a hole, and, you know, what size we can get based on the conditions that we have, you know, we try to open it up until there's some relief, so the guys can, you know, get some advancement inside the house. You know, if it's a big hole, you know, then it's a big hole. If we can only get a small hole, then that's what we try to get. You know, we can go to the other side and open up the roof on the other side. Sorry, I got kids jumping on a trampoline over here getting hurt. What was the other part of the question? You know, the second truck that comes in, they typically, you know, will go interior, and then the other half of that crew, 2 guys, will handle utilities and do some outside, you know, ventilation. And I'm talking about, you know, houses. That's our main thing. You know, wood frame, ordinary construction is what we make a lot of fires in. We don't run a lot of flat roofs, you know, not a whole lot. Most everything's peaked, at least in my, you know, 22 years. So I feel pretty familiar, you know, pretty good about cutting anything on a peak, you know.
You guys got a lot of steep stuff up there that I know. You guys up there, it's a lot of steep stuff in Louisville.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, just like you know, anything over like a 612, you know, we just start looking for alternative routes to the peak of the roof. You know, if we got to cut it from there, then we will. You know, I mean, I've chopped from the roof. You know, I've cut a hole from the roof. It's never pretty trying to cut a hole with a chainsaw from the peak of the roof. You know, it's not
Hey, Josh.
nothing you're gonna put. It's nothing you're gonna
Josh, what
put in a
about
textbook.
what about cutting off a main? You like that? I'm getting used to that. I had a basket. You know, it was easy, but I took some tips from Sean Donovan, and I don't fucking. I'm not good.
What was he saying?
No, I was just trying to get some pointers from him. But does anybody have a lot of experience doing it a lot?
Cutting what?
Off a main with a chainsaw.
Off the aerial device. He's on a stick now instead of a bat.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah.
I upgraded.
I mean,
her.
Louisville's fucking terrible. I mean, we're ground ladder strong. I mean, it's damn near everything we make is surrounded with power lines, you know, so an opportunity for us to throw an aerial to a roof is pretty rare. I mean, I think a lot of guys kind of see that as a secondary anyway, and they'll come off with ground ladders, you know, and I mean, you can look at pictures of our fires that, you know, it looks something similar to Boston. I mean, there'd be 6-7 ladders, you know, thrown to this building. So cutting off of, you know, we train on it a lot, but as far as actually doing it a lot, no, we don't. We just really don't. I mean, I can't imagine it being that pretty. I haven't yet cut a hole off of the bucket, you know, off of the tower ladder. I've had no need.
Oh, that's easy. That's no problem.
Yeah. As far as the stick, I mean, I have in the past, and it's again not pretty. I mean, you know, you're not going to get this 4x4 hole. You know.
No, I don't. That number Art said the 4x4. I don't know. I was taught by Hoff. I took a couple classes from him, and I remember the exact thing he told me was a hole's a hole. Get a hole. You just don't have the time, and that's talking with all of us big city guys. With we can stomp it out with just breathing in the room. That's how many guys are in the fire. But
yeah.
G-Ron, Jarrett, the real departments that have 1-2 dudes. I mean, that's something they really have to look at. I'm surprised nobody's asking more about what are they going to do with the manpower. I mean, how they're going to deal with this. I mean, my opinion,
I don't think roofs are not when you've got less people, roofs are not getting opened.
That's what I'm saying. We just out. Yeah, it gets cut because we need. We have an outside vent. Like typically, the truck chauffeur is the outside vent. He's and as long as he's good, as long as he can think on his feet, that works out really good. Like you said, Arthur, we're stretching lines a lot faster nowadays, and we seriously just I can't tell you that that we've needed a roof cut that wasn't cut in recent memory.
What's up, everyone? I'm late to the show. It's good to see you, Ron and Mike and all the dudes from
Hi, Jeff.
Up in Milwaukee. Yeah, we scheduled it on the day I was working. We caught a run right before it kicked off, so joining a little late. I do want to piggyback off Tim's discussion or question real quick about opening the small hole. I think you guys in the South are blessed with a little. It may not be definition of lightweight, but lighter weight construction than we do here in St. Louis. Over half our residential roofs are flat roofs, and it's not uncommon to have 4+ inches of tar on top of planks and roof decking. So we'll run into cases where we actually have to do a step cut, get the tar out of the way, and work our way in. So what Tim's getting at is, I'd love to open a 4x8 hole on every roof I go to, but some of our roofs, we're working for 20 minutes to get a 4x8 hole open with that much tar, and we're going to burn through 2 or 3 saws. I saw a video recently of flat roof ops on internet, and the dudes did a really good job explaining it, but they had 3 saws on the roof and went through all 3 of them during their drill. We don't have that. We'll have 1, maybe 2 if we're lucky. And I think what Tim was trying to get at is our construction. Mikey, I assume yours is similar to an extent. Maybe some of the Milwaukee guys, if you have flat roofs. Ron, you guys have a lot of snow. but sometimes it's all we can take to get a 3x3 hole open. And just that little bit is going to be a game changer for our guys on the inside. And, to going through the comments here, to Chad's point, we're kind of in the same boat where the line's usually off in charge. So it's not as big a deal for us to coordinate ventilation because, they're putting water on that, right away almost. They got water in that building, so we can start opening up as soon as we get up there. But for us anyway, we're almost all rotary most of the time, unless it's a real steep pitch. And then we go with like a Milwaukee style cut. And it can be taxing, that picture I posted on Facebook to kind of draw people's attention to this was one of our thinner roofs. And if you zoom in on the picture, that was from a recruit class training on a vacant, and the tar's 4 inches before we even got to the decking. And that was one of our easier roofs to open up.
Yeah, I think my only point was, they seem to teach, and at least when I came on, you cut a 4x4 or an 8x8. So guys cut a 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot by 4 foot hole, and there's no thought into how it's going to get opened up. So just making sure whatever size hole you start, it gets diced up well, so you're not killing your guys trying to open this thing up. Because as we've talked about, it's going to be 2 guys on the roof. It's 3 guys on the roof. Man, if we got 4, that's a heavy roof team. So killing all your guys trying to clean these holes out is stupid when we have these saws, and these saws, they can cut so fast. Just getting it diced up well enough to clean it out so you're not dead right after you get your hole cut. That was my only point. I think that was about a half hour ago.
And one thing I want to add too, and maybe we're wrong, I'd love to hear your guys' opinion on this, but when we dice, we try and dice inside the rafters so a bunch of shit falls in as we're cutting. I know some people may frown on that, but hopefully all the guys on the inside got their chin straps on, and it's small enough chunks of wood falling in that because the way we dice and the way we cut, that it's not huge chunks. We pull out what we can, but the more of those nails and shit we can get out of the way and avoid working against, the easier it's going to be in the long run. You guys get what I'm saying? Do you guys do something similar? Or are you guys still doing like a 7-9-8 coffin cut and pulling out huge chunks?
We do the 7-9-8 on flat. I mean, that's definitely our go-to. That's what everybody everyone's going to be on the same page when we do that. One thing that I do want to go back to what John was saying and Arthur, the dice cut, everybody learning the dice cut, right? I have had people on my job that we're not dicing anything and they're still smacking the roof like it's a dice cut. That's one of the kind of, I guess it's almost like the truck equivalent of penciling. When you get the guys in the flashover cannon, they pencil. If the engine does that, you're going to get burned up. But same thing, guys have that dice cut. They learn the dice cut, and you punch it in and punch one side, and it flips up, and that's great. But if it's not a dice cut and you're doing that, like you're doing nothing. So I wanted to hit on that when you guys were talking about it. I totally let it slip, but don't punch it in if you're not doing a dice cut, please.
See, and that's just that's terminology thing, I guess, Ron, because we call dice basically a 7-9-8, and we put in extra dices to make the chunks smaller to pull. What you're referring to, we would call that a louver cut.
Sure, louver. Yeah. Whatever terminology.
Yeah. And we'll run that. We'll do that on our, our newer constructed, decking or shingled roofs, similar to what I imagine, Josh, you and Arthur have down south.
Yeah. A lot of louver cuts. I mean, damn near every one of them,
Yeah, see, you just don't have the building construction. Mikey, I think your flat roofs are probably more along the lines of what we're used to dealing with, on the regular. We have a lot of flat roofs.
That flat roof, the 7-9-8 cut, awesome. But I knew what it was, the coffin cuts. The best thing that Arthur and G-Ron always said it was great, was it allows you to have 2 different companies start off and work off that hole. If you're coordinated, you can't just have, if you've never trained and done it with another company or guys that come to the roof with you, it's a complete abortion. It's a mess. So, I mean, if you have guys that know and you work together and you study and you do the right thing, that cut is efficient. Besides the step cutting into it, Jeff, I get it. I've been there, done that. Sucks, right? You all the way down to got it all the way down to the arbor, that whole 5 inches of love, and it ain't going nowhere, right? I get it. Sucks. But that technique, awesome. The only thing I have to say about it, I just saw a video on it not too long ago. Be cautious of that middle cut, the bottom of the 9. I would save that for last. What people have a tendency to do is to step on it and totally forget to finish. They're starting the 8 and their foot's right on it. I mean,
Michael, that's the training. You got to switch hands. You got to switch to the
my
left
bad.
hand.
Sorry.
And when you take that bottom of the 9, that's when the other guys can start working. Though. So it's training, brother.
They
Just
can't.
like
They
anything
can't.
else.
They can't take
Sorry.
that. They can't pull it out, punch it until they take the bottom of the 9 and move on because they
That's right.
start getting the saw bound up.
I got to get the left-handed saw. I always grab the right one.
You got to
See?
call. You got to call the bullpen for the lefty on the saw.
Yeah, we talked about this. Remember?
But no, that cut is phenomenal for flat roofs, fast, efficient. As long as guys work together on it, you have to at least train on it. I am a basher when it comes to pitch roofs, so it just
Mikey, we always end up bashing too, and that's why the majority of us in our city, and it's lighter weight constructed cities don't seem to be that way. We're still carrying a tool with a pick, and mainly that's because we'll actually dice up the tar and have to use our picks to bust the tar and pull the tar out of the way so the sawyer can get in there and finish his cuts on the usually it's planking. We don't deal with a ton of OSB or plywood, but so that's why we all carry bad axes or pick-headed axes when we're on the roof, because that's kind of the way that works best for us, man.
it works. It works. But I have to agree, like Josh said earlier. That chainsaw is pretty nice.
Yeah, it's nice.
Now,
Take that safety guard off. Take that.
Like having three more guys on the roof of the chainsaw.
Right? It's amazing. I like it. I love the rotary saw. G-Ron schooled me on different blades. I learned now that the 32 teeth blade that we've always had, I was like, oh, this is a great blade. It's the best thing in the world. He's like, what are you, trimming a crown molding in your house?
Yeah. Chopper blade, 12 tooth.
Yes, right? So I learned, thank you, G-Ron. So make a mess of it. Who cares? Whatever, get all that stuff, just dig it out and get moving with it. So I definitely like the other blade versus, but the chainsaw, call me a wuss, but man, those things have a break for a reason. I learned the Wichita guys, man, I learned a lot from those guys, those wildland guys, where not to cut, the tip, the corner. Man, plunging, I kind of used the whole bar, used the top, used the side. Oh, I was blown away. I'm like, man, I am really behind in chainsaw work, but I am eerie with a chain break. Yeah, I'll use it, Josh. I love it. Don't get me wrong, but we forget the hole that's already there for us. Every pitch roof has one. The mushroom, knock it off. Boom, it started already for me. And guess what? It's attached to the roof, to the roof rafter. Boom, keep moving. This is simple stuff, right? But
Ridge vents are great because if you pop a ridge vent off, your top cut's already made.
You're already done. You're ready to go. Go ahead. Somebody else.
Since it was briefly mentioned, and Ron, I think we're on the same page from when we've hung out and talked at Milwaukee, but we run, the 12-inch or the 12-tooth, 12-inch blades because of our building construction. The bigger saw blades don't work as well on our saws, and the 12 teeth, they're awesome, man. It looks spinning shark teeth on there, destroys roofs. But I'd love to hear, Ron, your little spiel you give is really good on the saw blades and what people are running on rotaries.
I forgot what I said.
But it's probably in a training seconds video.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, this is going way too long, man. We're going way too long. So I like the 12-inch blade simply because rotating mass, unless you got a really strong saw.
Mhm.
Also, it limits your depth of cut. You know, you don't have because if you get a Yahoo from an engine or something detailed in, and they're running the saw, they have less opportunity to bury it too far, so to speak. But then, you know, just like you said, if there's too much insulation or too much buildup tar, you're gonna have to step cut it, and that just is what it is. I mean, you know, improvise, adapt, and overcome. That's just the way it is. But that 12 tooth, it's gonna sling a lot more material, and even, you know, those 12 tooth, even when they're dull, when the teeth are gone, it's the same principle. I mean, when the teeth are on there and it's sharp, it's like, you know, using the axe blade, which I don't know who used the axe blade on roofs, but whatever. Chicago guys do. Torres, I know, I'm looking at you, brother. But even when it's busted, the carbide is gone. It's still that, you know, bashing. So that you know, the aggressive part of the blade that's gonna bash through there anyway.
I think, Ron, I think Gary Lane has a good video on that. Part of the reason we went with the blades that we got was just that exact scenario. They lost every tooth on their blade, and it just kept going. And it was because of that aggressive blade design. So that's part of the reason we went with the one we have, is so if it does chip a tooth, who cares? Keep going at it.
Yeah, if I mean, you know, obviously, typically, a lot of places are going to be able to replace it. I worked on a truck company, busy truck, you know, in the city, for years without a chainsaw. We didn't even have a chainsaw. So, and then our rotary saws, they bought us the cheapest blades they could get. So, it's a lot easier. I mean, if you're talking about $300 for an RDR chain to replace versus, you know, $50 Firehooks Unlimited 12 tooth, that's a big deal. But I mean, if you can replace it after every fire, which, you know, a vast majority of departments can replace it, but you know, if you are in a hardship department, that'll still work when it's got no teeth on it.
And actually, it's a lot easier. We have a local shop that puts new carbide teeth on our 12 tooth and gets them good as new. So,
and that's a lot cheaper when there's only 12, right?
Yeah, because it's by the tooth actually. So
Yeah,
kind of like dentist, you know what I'm saying, Chad?
Hey, Ron, is there a
Yeah.
minimum? Our department, I haven't sold them on that 12 tooth yet. So we're still taking chainsaws to pitch roofs. We may take a rotary to a flat roof, but on your 12 tooth, you said 12-inch. That makes sense. That way you're not cutting too deep. But is there a minimum horsepower on that saw or CC? Because I had a blade like a warthog once that I tried it out on our saws. It wouldn't run it for shit. And I believe it's because our saws are they bought the wrong damn saws for us. They're too small. Rondo told me once, you got to have a saw over 90 cc's to run those blades.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know exactly what it weighs. I've never actually weighed one, but I know what the shipping weight is because I can sell you one. But the shipping weight is 14 pounds for a warthog blade. So if you think about that, 14 pounds of rotating mass, it's going to take, you know, it's going to take some power to get it moving, and it's going to take some resistance to get it to stop too. So I mean, it's good. You know, you're not going to roll any raptors with that thing. You can forget it. It's like a hot knife through butter. But they are expensive too. You know,
it's a 1/4-inch piece of steel, and
yeah.
we had them, and we went away from them because we were running 960s and 970s. And it's going to take every bit of a real K12 to turn that because it's so aggressive. And what we were finding was we were getting into roofs over in the ghettos and stuff, and it would bog down because the saw doesn't have enough ass to turn it. So we weren't going to change out new saws just because of a blade. So we went away from that, did a little R&D, went to the 12-inch 12 tooth blade, and does wonders for us.
Yeah, same deal, Chad. We had the same exact thing happen. We field tested the Warthog, and it was shit for our saw. And every time you put it in any type of thick tar, it just stopped. I mean, it was no good for us. So we used the same thing, which, I'll send you pictures. I'll show you what we got tonight. I'll text it to you.
You know, another thing about that one too, and I don't know if it actually happens in the real world. I've seen people that that teach it all the time, but that whole stopping the blade before you move thing, I'm not a big fan of that at all. You should probably put up some scene tape or something if you think you're going to bump into somebody with your saw. But I mean, if you do that with the War Dog blade, you're going to be up there for half an hour, just to get the thing rolling again. So I just think that's one of those kind of things that, I see it in training, like especially in academies, they're like stop the blade or with the chainsaw, put the brake on, move, take the brake off. It's just one of those things. One of my pet peeves that I just don't like it.
And
Great for a class when you're training people.
they also roll it around, on the roof, and clearly they're not 6'5" walking their saw around the roof.
Another myth perpetuated by the FDNY guys, and I tell those guys all the time. Chicago does it too, a little bit. Torres, that rolling it around on the roof. If you're using your saw to find out where holes are, I think you're in the wrong business, man. This is not. That's going to
Not
be
all
a
of
late
us,
warning.
Ron. Not all of us.
We're sitting here and like Jason's up here with me. If I go up to the roof with him, he's always in front of me. If I have the saw, he's in front of me sounding anyway. So I would hope if he finds a hole, he'll tell me not to step in it. So, I mean, that's kind of how we do things. Whoever's doing the sounding leads the front until we get where we're going, and then we cut our hole. So, anybody got anything they want to throw in on saw blades before we move to my next note?
I was just wondering who was going to be the first to offend somebody, and it was Ron. Good job.
I'm surprised it wasn't you, old man. How are you?
Oh, shit. Well, I might have. Who knows?
I didn't think they let pumper guys on truck pod.
Oh, that's very hurtful.
Hey, John, I'm with you, brother. I got no choice. I'm on an engine now, man. It's just
Right
the way
on,
it is.
Right
If I was still a firefighter, I'd be on the truck.
Yeah.
Hey, but it was John's choice.
So Doc wants to go watch Chicago Fire, Torres's favorite show, in the comments.
Yeah, Jeff, you're on one, boy.
Right?
I'm all fired up. Hey, so
I do have one thing about blades, Jeff.
yeah, I guess that this is what happens when I can't drink during the podcast legally. Go ahead, Tim.
I was just going to say, being out teaching, and we teach some roof stuff to people who don't go to a whole lot of roofs, but I think the information is still obviously beneficial. But we've seen, people that have these multi-purpose blades on their rotary saws, and I ask them to lay out the saws that they would take to a roof, and I get a rotary saw with a multi-purpose blade on it. Those multi-purpose blades traditionally don't have teeth, like the 12 tooth that we're talking about, and things like that. And really, in order to cut roofing material, you have to have a blade with a tooth on it that can actually pull and remove that material, as opposed to essentially all these different grinding wheels that people are putting on rotary saws. And they say they can cut everything, and they do cut everything to some extent, but they don't cut roofing material really well. So
just burns it.
Right. It cuts it by proxy, just as a war of attrition, but it's not super efficient. And that's definitely a case where you'd be, better just chopping a hole with an axe. But if you are going to a roof and you don't do it a whole lot, pay a little extra attention to what blades you're taking with you, because you can make it so much easier on yourself. And these blades, like we said, they're not the $300 chainsaw blades. They're $40, $50, $60 blades that you can have re-tipped. So even from departments that don't have a ton of money, getting a blade to at least keep on the truck would be a good thought, just to make your life a little easier. So that's all I got. Those multi-purpose blades don't multi-purpose roof material.
They cut metal really, really well, and that's why people bring them, because they think they deal with metal roofs. Well, most metal roofs we're going to go up that are able to be cut. The chopper blades, the carbide blades with the 12 tooth, and then almost all chainsaw chains out there that are carbide tooth cut those metal roofs just fine. I mean, you're going to break some teeth off, but they cut them just fine. We cut a whole airport roof off, and it was copper, and we used our chainsaws the whole time. We never had a multi-use metal cutting saw up there. Somebody had something?
Yeah, you said you had 4 inches of asphalt on some of your roofs.
Oh, yeah, or more.
And you're talking about a flat roof.
Yes, sir.
Wow. I've done a few flat roofs, but I've never seen that much. So my statement may not apply to that. But on all the flat roofs, Ryan's on here, Paul's on here, John's on here, all the flat roofs that we've trained on and had fires on, we've decided that it's faster. Not that we're going to bring that saw. That saw is always a backup. But in all of our flat roofs, it's always been quicker if you have competent people on the axe to just cut the asphalt, roll it back, chop the foam. Everyone get down on their hands and knees like dogs and pull that foam out of there and throw lat hooks under it, and then get 2 competent son of a bitches on those saws and a good golf swing on that axe. And as long as they can marry their cuts up and they're good at it, would smoke that saw. We've done time trials. I got videos of it less than a year ago. We did it again, trying to prove to somebody this is quicker. And for our roofs, we kind of got away. Our flat roofs, we got away from saws within our company. Everyone else is gonna throw a diamond blade at it, and it's gonna get all gummed up, and they're gonna have issues. But anyway, I was surprised to hear nobody else had found what we found. But I guess all of our experiences, we haven't encountered 4 inches of asphalt like you have.
Yeah,
I've got a couple inches, and we can still just cut through that, score it, pull it back.
The caveat to that is, Jeff, the reason that we do that is because our saws suck. Our saws are underpowered and we're using the wrong blades. We're using those combination blades and they absolutely suck. So yes, Chad's right. We just started practicing and trying to figure out a better way, and that's what we came up with. 4-hour saws. If we had some badass equipment, then maybe we'd all love saws.
Our saws are pretty good. Our roof saws, and we have the in my opinion, at least the ones in my short career, the best blades blades I've ever used. We covered in depth here, but Chad, I sent you and Paul a picture of a fairly regular hole. It's on my phone. I can't figure out how to share it to my laptop, or I put it up for everyone to see. So I don't know. I'll have to work on that for next time. In my
Chad's got the technology square rooted. If you want to look at his screen.
Hey, Josh Webb, don't you have some sheet metal cutting stuff with an axe? I think me and you shared some stuff back and forth on cutting metal with I was using an Iron Fox. I think you're using just a regular blade.
Yeah, you're telling me, right?
No, I think it was Josh. Wasn't it me and you, Josh, that had a discussion on cutting the metal with an axe just as efficiently? Maybe it wasn't. Maybe I'm just dreaming.
Josh Webb.
Yes.
I don't remember that. Was I drunk? I could do anything.
There's a good chance you were drunk. I will say that.
Yeah. Just like Chad was saying with the using the axe on the build up roof with the metal, you got to have good technique. You got to have really good technique to make that work really well.
Coordination.
Yeah, I mean it's got to land in the right spot, and you can't go too deep. If you get too deep, it's going to get stuck. It's just it's all about that. Is really all about technique.
Those thin metal roofs, man, we've ripped right through them. To get with chainsaws, no problem. I mean, we cut the whole. I mean, we cut a whole airport dome roof off. It was all copper, and guy sitting next to me, Jason and I cut. Probably over half of it off with the same chain. We refueled the saw a couple times and just kept cutting. All the teeth were gone. It was still eating right through that metal. So,
Jeff,
that's an off-the-wall thing.
Jeff, did that airport roof have that 2 or 3 inches of foam under it?
Yes, it was. It had a what? It was. It had 2 inches. And it was all sitting on top of a wood, like 1x frame arched in. And then the fire was burning and all that insulation.
Yeah.
And then underneath it was concrete, so we got tore up on Facebook because we had a bunch of firemen up there But I'll tell you what, all those people were not up there when it was going good. I wish they were. It would have made our lives a lot easier. That was at the tail end, and we were just removing debris because the FAA is pretty strict about roofing and fire debris blowing on the runways. So we had to do a thorough sweep of the whole roof, and that's why there was 30 of us up there, but it was on a concrete roof. We were on basically 30 of us standing on a parking garage deck. I mean, it wasn't going anywhere, but, that's kind of a rare event. Probably never be on a dome roof airport fire ever again in my career. At least I hope not. And, it was brought up and I missed some, but I kind of want people to mention building construction and talk about the importance of building construction. We'll throw it to the group, because like in our city, 99% of the time we know which way our rafters or trusses run, because not only do they run the narrow width, but they run parallel to the roads. That's just the way St. Louis is built. Lucky for us, every once in a while we run into an off-ball commercial buildings or some cases newer construction, but knowing where your structural members are and how it's built is probably key. And I'd love to hear some of your guys' thoughts on that.
Hey, Jeff, that also plays right into knowing when to put the hole, where to put the hole, sizing up the roof before you get up there, knowing that the stairs are in the back, fire's barely extending to the second floor. So even though smoke's pushing from the front, those guys need a hole above the stairs where it's spreading to the second floor. And those guys going to the roof need to know where the stairs are. In most of our cities, the houses, especially when you work in a district or a couple of districts and you go a couple out, you know the layouts of your houses in general. You know where the stairwells are, you know where the open voids are, you know if you have knee walls, you know if it might be more beneficiary. We haven't even talked about horizontal ventilation yet, but it might be more beneficial for those truck guys, especially like Ron Smith, when they can't even get to the roof, knowing I'm trying to push up the back stairs to the second floor, someone to take out that front window once they see water's flowing. I think horizontal ventilation is equally as effective depending on the situation. And like we talked earlier, a lot of times, like Arthur said, we don't have to coordinate our hole, because water is almost always getting thrown before the hole is 20% done. That's just the way it is. We're so quick. We have the resources. We're fortunate that way. So therefore, I think we should really focus sometimes on horizontal or vertical or horizontal ventilation as opposed to the vertical right off the bat. If someone would take the time to do appropriate size up and see what's going on and try to anticipate where the truck going, where the rescue guys going, where are people still possibly trapped and alive in this building. Because and when it comes down to it, I don't care if the fucking thing burns down. I just want to search the survivable area, and then I can go back to station.
Yep. That outside vent man's worth his weight in gold on that horizontal.
Yeah.
Make sure that outside vent guy is a little seasoned, I would say. Somebody that has patience.
So for us, a limited staffing.
What's that?
For us, a limited staffing perspective, and James Thompson's on here, we say we're venting flat or we're venting up, because we don't have a standard. We're going to the roof every time, or we're going horizontal every time. So we make that call after we get there and size it up.
Yeah, and I know Arthur teaches, a similar class. I taught my truck class at FDIC, and it was all about, doing truck work from the pumper. There's a ton of people out there that do stuff on that, but that's where you guys on small departments got to use your drivers as your outside vent man, maybe even the incident commander, the chief. When you're dealing with four, 5, 6 people total on a house fire, someone's gonna have to do double, triple duty. I mean, that's just the way it works. You're not fortunate enough to roll up with 6 people, but does anybody, before we jump into horizontal, got anything they want to add on building construction, things they look for? I know a huge thing that was pointed to me, and I've seen it recently on Facebook. We always look for the wet wall on flat roofs, and we'll cut 3 to 6 feet perpendicular to that. And usually that does really, really well for us. But stuff like that, tips like that for people that don't get on a lot of roofs would be great.
Yeah,
I got
the vent
one
pipe
thing.
and sizing up the windows on the way in. To see where the if you have a strangely placed window, that's probably the stairwell, and then and then thinking about that plumbing wall, vent pipe, and then again, building construction is going to carry you so far. I mean, I was lucky to be a carpenter before I was on the fire department, so. A lot of that stuff just is kind of second nature just because of that. But there's a lot of things that you can, a lot of people say it, if you're on an EMS run, you should be able to size up the building from that and keep trying to keep that in the back of your mind, put that in the old slideshow. Hopefully you can, recall that when you need it.
Hey, Jeff, what's the wet wall? Is that the plumbing wall? Is that what we're calling the plumbing wall?
Soil stack.
Yeah, the plumbing stack.
Okay, cool.
I mean, that's just what we call it here. I mean, it's
I just, semantics, that's want to know what it's called.
Terminology. Plumbing wall. I'll start calling it plumbing wall.
No, stop. You guys are.
He's the Chicago Fire Department.
No, G-Rod, come on, help me out here. You said the same thing, damn it.
I'll put green lights on our fire trucks. There's something.
Next thing we'll have pumps on our trucks.
No, we got the green lights on.
Sorry.
Oh man.
Hey,
I'm as bad as that young guy, Mr. Young, offend people.
So I got two things that popped into my head that when we were talking about existing openings first, and this could apply for pitched roofs too with skylights. I know the house I grew up with was a pitched roof and had skylights. If you're gonna take skylights, whether you pry them off, which sometimes is easier than breaking them, or break them, if you think you got fire in the attic or whatever, you got to take out the returns. Is that what you call them in Chicago, the returns?
No, wainscoting.
All right, you got to take out whatever.
I learned that from Arthur though. When you said returns, I'm like, all right, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about, but he's.
I know what they are. You got to take out the finished material from the livable space on the side to the skylight.
Yes.
That's
wainscoting.
And I also existing openings. You talked about the mushroom vents, Mike, and you take them out. You said I was always taught, and maybe I was taught wrong, so I'd like to pick your guys' brains on it. If the vents are spinning and drawing smoke out, leave them be. If they're seized up or whatever, then you pop off them. If they're just caps, you take the caps. I'd love to hear some more.
That's what we do. We do the same exact thing. If it's spinning, we let it do its thing. If it's seized up, we remove it. If it's a cap, it's coming off.
Yeah, see, I think about that differently, man. I mean, I tell guys, like, I don't even waste my fucking time. I mean, I got a chainsaw. I mean, I can sit there and kick that fucking vent off, or I can cut a hole. I mean, I'm not even gonna waste my time with a fucking vent. I mean, I'm just gonna cut a fucking hole.
You're spoiled now, Josh. You're spoiled now, Josh. Spoiled.
I mean, typically, the only time that we're gonna do that
is
the guy that the hook, the sounding guy, is gonna maybe pop a couple of them if they're just the the 1x1 passive vent. But if it's an active vent, the turbine, let that thing go.
Fuck, turbine. I couldn't think of that. Thanks, Ron.
You're welcome. I have all the construction terms. Michael, wainscoting is the stuff that is in your dining room below the area.
I just put it up a couple weeks ago.
Thank you.
So
wainscoting, brother.
So was I right with returns, Ron?
Yes, sir. That's
return.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hey, I'd like to add something if you got a second.
Yeah. Who's speaking? I didn't hear.
Ryan Cummings from Rescue 9 in Kansas City.
Hey, what's up, Ryan?
No, a whole lot. With the whole vent thing, it's kind of I know John was kind of on the same page too. And when I was on the truck company before coming to Rescue 9, we never actually touched the vents until after we had the hole, just due to like the wind direction and whatnot. We never really would mess with that and go straight to. I don't remember who was saying it, but if we had a saw or axes or whatever, we'll cut our hole first and then come back and clean those things off after the fact. That way you don't have a bunch of smoke rolling over the top of you and you're fighting that. I mean, it's just kind of
Yeah.
makes sense anyways.
Yeah, we're the same way. I mean, it's an afterthought.
Just getting ready to say something similar is I don't like going after those vents right off the bat. Right or wrong, I've seen guys get up there and I've seen them knock off all of the vents right off the bat before they start their hole. It changes, you know, the wind direction, blows smoke right in your face the whole time. It moves the fire to, you know, the vent might not even be over the fire. You've moved the fire now across the attic space where you didn't want it. So you just go put your hole where you put your hole. At least that's how I was taught. And Ryan, same thing.
Hey, that all makes sense to me. I mean, I do want to clarify, you know, we're probably cutting why the guy who sounded everything is bashing those vents if we take them. It's kind of like a simultaneous thing. It's not like let's take all the vents and then see if we need a hole. And then we don't deal with them a ton of here. We're getting a few here and there, but you guys that run ridge vents, are you guys prying off the shingles over those? Is that a quick way to make a cut?
The ridge vent comes off so freaking fast. The guy on the hook can pop it while the guy's cutting with the saw. It comes off super fast, super easy.
Yeah, I never had to pull one, and I guess once you rip there, if you need, you don't need to make your top cut, right? You can see where everything's laid out and
Straight down cut, but sometimes depends on when you get there. Sometimes depends on what they're made of. Some of them could be melted shut.
okay. Yeah, it's not something we deal with here. I just saw a cool video on the internet. It seemed pretty easy to do it. So I figured I'd let someone talk on it that deals with those vents.
You talking about the plastic ridge vents?
Yeah.
They put on? Oh, okay.
On like
We don't
lightweight.
see a lot of those.
Yeah, that's a newer thing. You know, I've put a lot of them on. I haven't taken any of them off in a fire. I mean, again, we don't have a lot of new construction. We don't have any new construction.
Well, on the video I saw, we use a New York roof hook on one side and a LA trash hook on the other. They just put that trash hook head in there and gave it one pop, and like the whole thing almost popped off. It was pretty slick, but I've never done it. So, hey Tim, you had something you wanted to clarify real quick before we moved on?
Yeah, real quick. I guess Webb, are you a chainsaw guy?
I mean, I got a couple.
Fair enough. You were Ron, I guess. I'm going to throw this one to you guys. We clarified a little bit on the rotary blades and how, you know, not all blades are the same. And we've been talking about chainsaws. And another thing I've seen, you know, going out and talking to people is that, you know, guys get these chainsaws from their department. They'll go to a lawn and garden store and they'll get a steel chainsaw. It's a nice chainsaw. It's just got a regular blade on it. And that's not, when we say chainsaws, we're not talking about regular blades that you'd use for trimming trees and things like that. So either you or Ron, could you clarify a little bit about what we're looking for in a chain to effectively cut a roof and metal decking and things like that? Because Lowe's isn't going to sell one of those.
I mean, carbide tips. I mean, what do you think, Ron? I mean, that's all we run. I have no say so on what they buy. You know, I mean, I just work around what they provide. Ron's the salesman.
Yeah, I'm the salesman.
More.
So there's a couple different good ones. RDR, the Sabertooth is pretty good. Arthur, you got something to chime in with this too? But you obviously
stay away from the bullet chain.
Yeah, bullet chain is slow. They last forever. That's like, I can't get my department away from, like, they want them, but they always ask for them, and I tell them no, don't do it. But they always ask for them because they last forever. They cut so slow and they get so hot, and they just cut so slow.
Well, it has a lot to do with the carbide tip and the kerf on it and the linkage when it comes to that. It's like an RDR, the rapid dual rescue chain. Has a lot to do with the linkage, has a lot to do with the kerf on it because it's ripping, and a chainsaw is running 15,000 RPMs. And if you've got one that's super sharp, it's like sinking into a roof decking like butter. I think someone mentioned a while ago that there was a video they watched some guys do some flat roof work the other day, and they went through 3 saws. Well, they went through 3 saws because the chains and the blades they were using were just crap, and so that's why that they didn't cut through. I think it was 1 by decking with some felt paper on top, maybe a layer of shingles on it. But yeah, it has. It's all about how it's made. The Sabertooth, in my opinion, the Sabertooth and the RDR is probably the best out there. Bullet chain, it just burns.
Well, the bullet, if you look at a bullet chain, I mean, if you got one hand, you look at a bullet chain, the actual carbide tooth only sticks up like about a 1/16 of an inch above that bullet. The bullet goes in and smashes it, and then you just get just a little bit of a cut from that carbide tooth.
You just
Very
grind
little.
And didn't you guys say that,
Ron? Just grab
Ron, didn't you guys say that that little space that's in between the bullet, that's how much material is being moved? It's so tight.
Yeah.
That's the difference between how much material you're actually moving in an RDR blade versus those bullet chains. It's not a lot of stuff.
Yeah, and then you also have to do, pay attention to the raker. Like if you have a double raker or a split raker, that's a big deal. A split raker is going to move a lot more material. Once it gets out to the tip, it slings it off, and that's important. That's very important. It's just like having that bullet tooth doesn't have any rakers to even speak of, really. So they're awful. Don't buy them.
Just one more thing to throw out there: if you're running those kind of chains, make sure that your oil on your chainsaw is turned all the way up on the bar oil. If it's not effective. So make sure on your chainsaw that your bar oil that disperses it is turned all the way up.
Yeah, I know not a lot of people know that, but there is an oiler adjustment. I think like on my steel, it's on the bottom. But if you can, you do a couple minute Google search, you can probably find where your oiler is. And if you're cutting a roof, turn it up. I mean, just throw as much oil as you can.
And clean out that hole. There's a hole in the bar. Use a little paper clip, clean it out. The sawdust gets in there. And people don't clean that thing out. Like that, Chad. You got it. You know.
Huh?
Clean out the hole.
Hey, G-Ron, here. Screen saved it.
What is
I
it?
screen shared it to you. Look, see? Wayne's coating. See?
Where?
It says right there.
Who said? And where's that from? Chicago Fire Academy?
Don't worry about it. It's the
I believe
Bible.
it's
Don't
from
worry.
it's from the show Chicago Fire.
The Bible.
It says Academy notes. What did I tell you? It's just like
Don't
the
worry
Halyard,
about
Michael.
it.
It's just like the Halyard, Michael. You live on an island.
Oh,
Chicago
you
Island,
mother!
brother.
You're lucky you're far away, Ron. I'm gonna get my car. I'm gonna get my car.
It's only like 30 miles, brother.
I know it's not that far. You're fine. I'll be there.
Fred, still teaching them how to tie that halyard like you.
Hey, I can't get it down like you, Mr. Young. I can't. do it.
Floppity.
Lippity floppity.
Gold.
It's because he's old. Flop or flip.
Hey, and that's the cool thing about these things, man. Getting all these people from all over the country, north, south, east, and west. It's cool, man. You get different ideas, different verbiage. So that's awesome. Unless I'd like to wrap up the flat roof cutting part of our ventilation talk, unless someone's got something else that they want to throw in there real quick, and we'll change topics to horizontal.
So one pet peeve I have on the building construction side of it: quit cutting inspection holes on residential. It's a waste of time.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, we don't do them either. So I couldn't agree more, Jared. Did you guys talk? I assume from the starting point, one thing we say in our classes, and I've heard several of you guys do it, is, when we go up on roofs, it's not just about cutting a hole. I mean, for us specifically with a ton of flat roofs, it's a fifth side of the building that needs to be sized up, and that information needs to be given to the chiefs. So I'd love to hear what you guys got on that and what you're sizing up when you get on roofs, unless you covered it, before I got on. John, you want to lead us off and we'll go from there? Are you guys always cutting every time you go up?
Hey, Jeff,
Yeah, Chad, go ahead, buddy.
since no one's chiming in, as for us, our guys are always cutting until told to stop. At least that's what I told them, and that's what they want to do. They want their shit up. So we're gonna get up there. Not always. I mean, if there's a reasonable doubt, they could ask, but for the most part, they're just gonna go up there and do their job till they're told to stop doing their job.
I'm gonna ask.
Right, and and nothing else. You probably got one or two guys up there that need the experience. An overhaul and the secondary search anyway. So it's just plywood and shingles, get it done. One other thing for the vertical vent, and I didn't learn this till long in my career, and it doesn't always work for us, but most of us in an older part of our cities, all the cities I'm looking here, we have bowstring, we have arch truss, we have steel arch truss, and it took me 15 or 20 years to realize that I could size the building up and determine where to walk, so I'm not in no man's land. I can look at the sides of the building, the load-bearing walls, and see the knockouts and be able to tell where those steel arch truss are setting, so I can keep my feet on top of them. That's something that no one taught me. I had to come to the internet and come to guys like this to learn that. And then I found that it's also true for a lot of other commercial stores, like a Walmart. Sometimes they build inwards so you don't get to see it, but sometimes they build outwards where the main beams are at. Again, keep yourself on those, especially on old structures. When old structures didn't have heating and ventilation and they had skylights all over the place, and they filled them in with a quarter inch plywood doors, you want to know where you're walking. Sound hasn't proven to be real reliable for me. I mean, I do it, and I do it aggressively. So anyway, that's a few things I picked up on that finished on vertical ventilation.
Come here, come to me. We'll go be in a meeting.
That's awesome. That's the stuff we were talking about for Bill.
Yeah.
One more thing. Anybody want to throw something up with size up? Hey, Ryan, will you mute yourself, buddy?
Yeah.
We're getting some feedback.
Sorry, buddy.
Oh, you're good. No big deal. Anybody got anything else about sizing up roofs and are they giving any type of report to the chief?
I think ours are only when it's bigger. That's all. Like U-shaped courtyard buildings. If there's a firewall in between, if I get, a safe place, a lot of questions are, is it, if it's on the second floor, or the first floor, I know where to put it at, in over the stairwell, and open up that vent. That kind of thing. Other than that, I don't need anything else. I think I can John and Chad. I don't do anything until they tell me to stop.
No, so it could be iffy, man. You get newer chiefs promoted or something happens, there's a close call on the roof and people want to pull it back. And it was going to go to my last question on roof work, but so we got to be careful about just cutting everything, especially if the engine guys are so fast around here and they get water or we arrive a little later. At least on our job, it helps, build trust and confidence with the incident commanders and the chiefs. If you're smart about what you do and not just go up there and try and recklessly destroy everything, which I wish we could do on every roof, but I'm not a policymaker on our department. I got to follow rules,
Hey, Jeff, I got one more thing for size up that I teach my guys. I don't know that I've ever heard anyone else teach this. I don't teach a lot of roof stuff. I'm not an expert at it, but I tell my guys to pick a place to land, especially I'm talking about a residential. So when you size it up, you try to figure out where the fire is, try to figure out where the stairs are, try to figure out where those guys need a hole. And you're doing all this in the 60 seconds you're trying to drag a saw, a ladder, a hook, and everything else up a hill to the side of the house. But once you throw that ladder and you got all that knowledge in your head, you think you know where you're going to put that hole. look at what you're climbing above. Look down. Look where the fences are, the dog houses, the air conditioners, especially the shit that will kill you, like the 6-foot privacy fence with the nice little points on top of it. Why put a hole there when you know you can effectively put a hole 4 feet over? So if that pitch is a little more than you wanted to walk and you didn't want to wait for a roof ladder and you slip and fall, you don't land on the fence. So I tell my guys to pick a place to fall and try to make that match up with where you think the hole needs to go. I think it's nice, but
yeah, I know our rescues have cut several people. I know our rescues have cut several people off those wrought iron fences over the years, and I wouldn't want to land on one. So good point. Lastly, did you guys cover sounding and you know why roof work gets a bad name before you guys got into this? Or
Jeff, we basically talked about how vertical vent was dangerous and everything should be positive pressure attack.
oh, perfect. Is that why Sanders texted me a picture of the positive pressure attack textbook?
Yeah.
There's a textbook.
There is, and
You got to be kidding me.
Believe it or not.
Probably a bunch of videos of houses burning down too.
It is.
Oh yeah, there's guys jumping out of windows. I know that.
Positive pressure attack. All you need to know is the company that created it wrote the book and did that went out of business because it was too dangerous to teach it. So
You're gone.
That's pretty much where we'll leave that. What I was alluding to is, you know, for years and years and years, the fire service always said, never trust a truss. I mean, it was even in the beginning of my career, both, you know, where I'm at in the suburbs before I got here. And all the research is out there, and you could see tons and tons of videos of people who work on way more truss roofs than I do. The decking burns through long before a truss fails. I have pictures from a multiple alarm Tim was at that was all truss, and they were up on the roof, you know, doing some overhaul stuff after the fire was out, and there was still, all the decking was burnt away, but the trusses were still actually intact and holding. So I just wanted to get out there. If some of you guys have sounding techniques or something you want to throw, but for people whose departments, you know, won't put people on roofs because it's lightweight, you know, if you sound that decking and you're aggressive in that, you're probably not going to go through the roof.
Well, heck, a lot of houses in our district, you can actually see the rafters through the roof because the roof is so old that it's drooping in between the rafters. There's not a whole lot of sounding that you have to do. You know exactly where you're going to put the cut. I mean, that's just in the older neighborhoods that we're in.
It makes it easy to bash those roofs in real quick.
And I tell you, as I don't have years and years of experience on a roof, but I have an experience that we sound a roof and it feels spongy. We're like, oh shit, that's spongy. And then we look at each other and then we move on out there and cut the hole. And that's the way it is. John's laughing. He knows it. That's exactly what we do.
I didn't say it was safe.
No, it's not safe.
Well, spongy is not bad. There's you can find brand new construction that's what some people would call spongy.
Exactly, and that's why we keep going. And so therefore, it's really hard to tell. You don't know when the structural members, the actual trusses or joists, have been burnt through to a point. You know, it's just really hard to tell, I think. And you know, I got some time, and it's really hard to tell and determine. Now, what I will do is that's just like when I get burnt underneath my hood that's not tucked in, and that raises my level of awareness. This shit's spongy. I started looking around for the knee walls, the parapet walls, a party wall. I'm like, where are safe areas? When I feel this start to disappear from underneath my feet, when am I gonna run as fast as I can run? You know, so it does raise our awareness, and it might tell me to make three of the 6 guys back up and move over to that corner. We don't need all 6 of us out here because I'm not comfortable with this. So it does change my mindset and what I do, but it usually doesn't stop what we're doing.
Hey, Chad, when it comes to, we haven't talked about this yet, but when it comes to being spongy, you know, we always make an attempt to come onto the roof to where we believe, good roofing material exists. So if the fire's on the A side, we might come up off on the C side, opposite of the fire. And as we sound, if that roof is spongy, then that's just kind of our baseline. The odds are pretty good that that whole roof is spongy. It's not an effect of that fire. So we note it, but it doesn't necessarily stop our operations. So where you come onto that roof and how your initial sounding and your initial size of that roof is kind of a big deal. Because like we said, I mean, it could just, I know on my house, like I just got a crappy roof on my house. I mean, it might be 3/8 inch plywood, maybe. It's just not a great roof, and the whole roof is like that. It's still safe, but coming onto the roof in a spot where you believe that good roofing material exists is super important, because that's kind of your baseline for the rest of that fire. If it's kind of bad and then it gets really bad, it's probably time to stop. But just because it's spongy, you don't have to pull the plug right away.
No,
and one of the things that a lot of people don't understand is, that they probably don't think about, is that roof was not made for you to walk on. That roof was either made to shed rain or shed snow, depending on where you live. It's not, it just because it's a little, what you would think spongy doesn't necessarily mean it's bad. It just doesn't. It could be 2x4 framing. You never know.
Hey, Jeff, I got something I'd like to add real quick.
yes, sir.
All right. So you guys kind of touched on it, and I know it's kind of off the beaten path, but as far as the training aspect of it, everybody keeps saying the same thing, which is, a lot of people don't realize this, a lot of people don't realize that. One of the things that we did with ours, as far as our training, was we built sections of decking that had different thicknesses of plywood. You guys hear me okay?
Is that we getting feedback from you?
No?
Oh, you're good now. You're good.
All right. So we built, 4 foot by 4 foot slabs of different thickness of materials with different thicknesses, with and without, 2x4s, 2x6s. So when they say it's spongy, they get the idea of what spongy really is. And they get to see that amount of weight can be held with no rafter underneath, with just plywood decking. Now, granted, the fire is going to make a difference, but we had people that were coming off the roof saying, "Hey, it doesn't feel right," and then we'd have another crew go up on the roof and cut a hole with no problem. So I think a lot of it just came back to the training of not ever really getting that experience. And for the departments like I've been involved with in the past, where we just don't go to the roof, it's not a thing. When you have to, you're really limited because you've never been on a roof that doesn't feel right.
I always say that there's always a time and place. Never say you're never going to get on a roof, because then next day you'll end up on a roof. And we taught a class, and Schultz goes, "Oh, we'll never be in the building on a 2.5 on the rescue squad." And what do you think happened the next day?
Inside with the 2.5 on the rescue squad.
Yeah. So careful what you say. Let's see, the last, that's an excellent point. That's a great idea for a training prop. If you could get us some pictures of that, Dave, we'll get them posted up on our Facebook page. I'm sure Burn will sell them, or Take the Door. I mean, there's all sorts of companies here, but I think that's a good idea to get out there. And I do want to back up what everyone else said. Usually if it's a spongy roof, that just means sounded harder. And a lot of times we've been successful to where we'll bash open a hole real quick and get it opened up. And it's pretty successful for us. So anybody else got any questions on a vertical vent? Anything to add that you feel like we missed, or is somebody out there doing something different?
Hey, Jeff.
Yep.
Hannah asked real quick if there's ever an appropriate time to vent when fire is already venting through the roof. Is that correct, Hannah? Did I get that right? Yeah.
You're talking about like a little burn through if you still need to open it up?
Well, I'm just speaking purely from the side of complete and utter inexperience in this topic. So something I've heard, people like to watch a lot of YouTube videos and throw shit around. And if there's fire already venting through the roof, but there's still guys up on the roof doing work, I'm kind of like, well, why? So I was hoping for some clarity on that.
Yeah, I can throw 2 cents in on that real quick. We've had situations where I guess when you're talking about YouTube videos, the reason the fire is venting through the roof could be the guys on the roof and they're on their way down. Also, there's a pretty large overhaul portion of the whole thing. We'll get up on a roof and we'll decide whether it needs to be cut or not, and then there's fascia boards that have to come off and the gutter's got to come down and all that kind of stuff. So we might stay up there and hang out a little bit if we're in a safe spot, just to kind of help with the overhaul aspect of the whole fire. Sometime, Jeff and I got up on a roof and I was sounding my way around and all of a sudden my hook went straight through. Fire starts blowing out. I pulled off as much decking as I could get off to make that hole as big as possible. And then we got back down off the roof. So fire was showing through the roof. We were already up there. We made the hole as big as possible, as safely as we could.
So I gotta slide over to get.
So if there's a little fire showing and it's still safe enough that you can make that hole even bigger, then I say go for it. But if there's fire coming through a roof, I'm not going to start making the roof at that point. If anybody else has anything to chime in on that, feel free.
Yeah, I'd like to hear other guys' opinions before I say what I got to say.
Oh, I like that. I agree with everything you just said. And I'm also glad to see that other people stay up there for overhaul. I've seen a lot of guys get off of roofs without tearing off the overhaul portion and leaving a possible rekindle. There's a lot of work to do still after the fire's out, in my opinion, but nice to hear other people say the same.
Well, and Josh, we're from a department again where we're putting guys on the roof just simply because we can't fit any more inside. It's a different situation from guys, like Jared and some of these other guys, but we're up there and we got all the tools, we got everything already up there, and we've already done all this work. We're just going to hang out for a little bit because they don't need us to load hose or hook ceiling. So that's what we try and do when time allows. And again, it's like Jeff said earlier, it's a fifth side of that building, and we can continue to give a size. Hey, we still got this going on up here, or we got rafters sagging, or we got this and we got that. I mean, it's another set of eyes and extra guys, really.
Yeah, if you have enough people to stay up there, typically we're going to get down because we have a lot of other stuff to do.
Yeah, I have several examples. We'll cut our holes and then we'll go hang back till they get it knocked down, and we'll go back, and that's standard operating for us. And I love to see that Captain Potter's back this week. He was there with us last week, so we'll get his input. He's on one of the busier hook and ladders in our city, so he's on plenty of roofs. Some of his company's on, so that's cool. It's good to see guys from my job on here. I think we might be outnumbering the Kansas City guys finally, so that's a plus. All right, Kevin Potter, I'll let you unmute yourself. We're wrapping up vertical ventilation, but I know you got some stuff that might be a little different. I'll feel comfortable cutting you off if you say something we've already covered, but I'd love to hear your input before we move on to other forms of ventilation.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Oh, see, I got my own Zoom account now. Figuring this out.
Not on your wife's account anymore. I'm proud.
Right. Well, I'd have Brian set it up for me here.
He's supposed to be on.
He is on. And next week, you're going to be a regular, Mark. So thanks for coming back.
No problem. I'm late to the game here, but that's kind of the story with all of us hook and ladder guys getting up on the roof. We're usually late to the game, and hopefully we can get there quick enough to get up on a roof and do some good with ventilation. Unfortunately, most of the time the line's already stretched and in there and putting the fire out before we're getting up on the roof. But I look at it as any opportunity we can, as especially if it's a vacant house or whatever that's has a decent roof, it's still worth the shot to get up there and make it a training experience. So
absolutely. And that's where you're gonna get the most bang for your buck. You got to cut some real roofs. I mean, that's just the way to get good at it, as much as possible. So, anybody got anything else?
Hey, before we move on, Jeff, can I ask one more chainsaw question? Because I don't know a whole lot about them, and there's some guys in here that know a lot.
About what? I'm sorry, John.
Chainsaws.
Chainsaws, yeah. There's plenty of dudes.
So we use the RDRs, and I just wanted to know from the guys that know. It says I just brought up the package that we get our chains in. It says pitch is 3/8 and the gauge is 63 thousandths. Is that what we need to be using, in your opinions?
Chain's got to match your bar, but I'll let Josh Webb or Schultz take this.
Yeah.
Wait, Schultz. Hobie, put it.
I was trying to unmute myself. I was confused. I'm doing a lot of different things. The .063, is that what you said?
Yeah.
I think that mainly, correct me if I'm wrong here, that's mainly the drive sprocket on the saw, right? And I guess the width of the bar. So your bar should have markings on it, the pitch and all that other different kind of stuff. And I don't really know, man, I think we run 063s, I think. The next size up from that is like a 404. I don't think that really makes a difference in the cut, in my opinion. Webb or Ron could probably chime in on this a little bit more. To me, I think just having a good carbide tooth, and I don't know if you guys like those double rakers or not, but we run that Terminator chain to where the tooth is actually welded all the way around. It's not just welded on. I don't know if you guys can see it. It's not just welded on one side. It's actually welded all the way around, which makes for it, in my eyes, it's just a little bit of a stronger bond. You guys got anything on that?
Didn't Arthur have something to say about the chains? I didn't think RDR felt in there. It was Bullet and another one.
Well,
I know Brian Matson's done a lot of stuff on it. And he said he'd force entry on a steel door with his chainsaw. I'd never attempt that. So chain
on that, hey Chad, on that RDR chain, Steel makes two types of chains that are RDR. You have to get the right color. You're going to get the one that has the high kickback, and it's for professional use. The other one is low kickback and is used for something else, but it's still it's the same type of chain, but it's different. So when you purchase it, you have to make sure you get the one with the high kickback.
How do I know that, Arthur? I'm looking at the package right now.
There should be a colored dot on it. It's either green, yellow, or it might be pink.
Yeah,
ours are green, Arthur.
Yes, green is the high kickback.
We have two with the RDR with the green split rake, and then our SuperVac saw. That's usually the first one off. Is that Terminator chain with the double rake that Tim's talking about? But
I prefer that Terminator chain to the RDR personally.
The gauge, John, is the width of the bar, I believe.
Yeah.
As long as the width of the bar lines up, like the numbers on the bar line up with the chain on your package, you're good to do. So it's the drive tooth, and the width of the chain. As long as that lines up, you're good. I know some fire departments like the thicker bars, which would change it. They order custom bars, and that's because they think it dissipates heat a little better. That's my understanding, not necessarily the width of the cut. Is anyone, am I right? Or is...
Yeah, Webb, you got anything to add to that?
Not really, no.
I
mean,
the box
I've cut trees my whole life, but I never got into all that kind of nerdy bullshit.
No, right. I know like what fits on my saw and what doesn't, but not
it's like
that's what you want to do.
You
want to make sure that you those numbers match. That's the important thing.
Oh, definitely.
Make sure that the numbers match.
Your head is
I would show up and pick up the chains I needed, throw them on, and then I would climb and drop trees. Yeah.
Right. And having a good carbide tooth is really the way to go about it. And I guess for some people that don't know much about chainsaws, you know, it should be mentioned, I guess, that all of the bars and the drive sprockets and all that stuff, those are all interchangeable. Your power head and what actually generates that movement of that chain, that's where the money is. The bars and the sprockets and all that stuff can be interchangeable. So you can make, just because you have a 20-inch bar, I mean, you can make that shorter, you can make that longer, but you just have to make sure that you have the power head behind it to drive it, which is your money maker there. So don't get hung up on the, as Webb said, the nerdery of the whole thing. Like you can change sprockets out, you can change bars out, but having a good power head to actually run that blade that's your money maker there.
Yeah, if the chainsaw they gave you didn't work, pull out your axe.
Well, yeah, that's the thing, Josh. You know, just we don't a lot of that stuff, that deep dive into stuff, you don't need it unless you're speccing the stuff. There's a lot of stuff in the fire service that you don't know. You know, I relate it to toilets. Like my kids are excellent toilet operators. They couldn't build one to save their life, but they can operate the thing. And we get people that can operate saws and can operate things, but they don't know what they're doing. And you know, nozzles, hose, pumpers, ladders, all kinds of stuff. People just typically don't know. That's fine.
Well, I'm surprised that my department has gotten a good chain. I just thought I'd ask you guys if it was the right one for our application, just because the guy that would buy them, he'll buy us anything. This is what somebody on the department has asked for, is an RDR. So
You know,
that's what I'd ask.
John, I have to agree. Sometimes we just get lucky and they give us good shit. I don't think it's always pre-planned that we got what we got, but it works out. I mean, I think saws and all this, and it's a perfect way to wrap it up. Josh said it earlier. It doesn't necessarily matter what you have, as long as you know what you have and you can use it properly and effectively. You know, if you need to make major changes, it's fine, but you can cut roofs with steel saws. You can cut roofs with super vac saws. You can, all these, you just got to be good at what you got, know what you have, and hopefully down the line, you'll be in a position to get something better if need be. But that's kind of my stance on it. As long as it works, as long as it starts, you check it.
Run that pulling wild thing.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's switch gears now. Let's go to horizontal ventilation. Probably all of us love cutting roofs, but let's be realistic. The majority of the fires in this country, no one's cutting the roof. I mean, but I would be hard pressed to find a fire anywhere probably in the world where they're not horizontally ventilating. So it's probably pretty important to hit that pretty well. All right, Torres, go. You're sitting back, man. I can't let you fall asleep. So get up there, get on your soapbox, brother.
I wouldn't say we don't have a guy that's an OV guy. We vent as we go. As we're searching, we'll vent as we search. But other than that, that's the extent of actual horizontal ventilation. We love hydraulic ventilation. I mean, fog nozzles, that's like the pickhead axe, right, Ron? I mean, they won't give that thing up ever.
And those super rear mount tower ladders.
And those silly things, crazy thought. But
hey, don't even get me started on the snorkels, man. I don't even want to talk about snorkels right now.
But they are big into the horizontal ventilation for hydraulic ventilation. I'm sorry. They'll fog it out. I mean, we love to fog it out. I mean, is it a difference? Sure. But we don't have a dedicated guy to just sit there and take his time and, be patient and do the right thing and, vent as they, on the outside. We don't have that. That's not something we do normally. Do we take windows too soon? And do we do things too soon? Sure. But if we have a little bit more control, we could be a little bit better at doing that. Maybe popping the back, we send the guy to the rear, and popping that back door, closing it as soon as you pop it, let them know you open it up. Don't let, I'm not a flow path guy. Don't get me confused. All right. I don't flow that way. But some things are just common sense.
I don't always, I mean, I like fire to be visible and shown, and as long as you're not venting behind the engine company, it's not always a bad thing that it lights it.
Yeah,
you know.
draw it to you. I mean, I don't see the problem drawing it to you. I mean, if it's behind you, you pop that big picture window behind you, let it come to you. Maybe they're scared. I don't know. I would much rather see it glow and come up to me. That's my opinion, but I don't have a lot of, like I said, some of you guys might have that OB guy. That's something I like it. I think it's a great position. I think it's for minimum manning. It's a great technique. I think it's great, but I don't think we do it enough to have a stance on it for me personally.
Yeah, I think our department's kind of, and some of your else departments might be the same way, where it's kind of transitioning. Where when I came in, it was like knock all the fucking windows out. You know, I mean, take everything, open it up, and now we've gotten to the point where it's like, don't open anything, you know, except for the roof. Or we go to the roof on everything. So if a window gets taken out, horizontal ventilation, it's usually from an interior crew as they're advancing through the fire, you know, knocking a window out or whatever. You know, sometimes we'll look for that stairwell window, you know, take it out if we need to or not, you know. But usually if a window's getting taken out, it's from an interior crew. And if somebody's just going around smashing windows out, then, you know, they're probably going to get a talking to now. Whereas 15 years ago, you know, it was an attaboy. Good job. You know, it's not like that anymore.
Well, we also got the that Lexon glass now.
Lexon.
So it's not the board up. If we don't have the VPS or the dog systems, that metal, it's that Lexon glass. You can't see it. It has reflection. You can see the bolts go through it by wire with a piece of unistrut behind it. But man, those are a bitch. I ain't gonna lie. They're tough. They're tough.
I look at that differently. I mean, you know, you're talking about something that's going to be an obstruction for somebody to get out, where, yeah, those need to be opened up. If there's no window behind that, you know how that Lexon is. Usually they got the window, you know, part way down or part way up so they can run their bolts through it. You know, yeah, we're going to be taking those off. Now, is that horizontal ventilation? Yeah, it is. But it's not like breaking glass. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different.
Smith's pulling some stuff up, some hydro vent. Nice. Hey, we're dealing with that Lexon, and if anybody out there, if you have it in your city and you don't, you've never messed with it, call the company. They will ship out stuff for you to train on. And we found the best thing to cut that, interestingly enough, is chainsaws. Chainsaws destroy it like it's nothing. So
chainsaw was what we were using. Then they all the majority of the busier truck companies got, like ours. We have that Milwaukee 4-inch grinder with a diamond blade. That thing's pretty sweet too. It doesn't burn back, you know, when you're cutting, burn back and reseal it up. It's pretty nice. Either or, but like I said, the chainsaw used up on the roof anyway, so we have that.
Are you talking about just the circular saw?
Yeah, it's that 4-inch Milwaukee, you know, battery powered 18-volt thing.
That's an angle grinder, right, Mike? With
angle grinder. I'm sorry. Yes, angle grinder. Yes, Ron. Thank you.
Angle grinder with the diamond blade.
Yes.
Yep.
That's nice. Hell yeah, you can cut that with one hand.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
We are running which works good in smoke for cutting that things. We're running one of those DeWalt circular K12 type saws. I don't even know the name of it, but DeWalt runs off a battery, so it won't choke out in smoke. We're working on getting better blades for that. I found out recently that Desert Diamond makes one, same as our cutoff, so we'll have to try and get that. But
you see, Jeff, you see that, speaking of the diamond or the battery powered shit, you see that Milwaukee has a 970 circular saw, a big boy, 14-inch blade.
No, I hadn't seen that.
Maggie to get the charger.
Ours, we don't have that one yet. We got the DeWalt because we have flex fold everything. But you know, back to horizontal vent. Is any departments? Chad, what are you guys doing?
I would say we're pretty consistent with the rest of the country, as into being disciplined, trying to know where water's going, when water's flowing. For the rescue companies, we usually have 2 guys going around back. So I will add the horizontal vent. and it goes a little bit. It probably doesn't go against basement, but I learned this early on in my career, and I've done it ever since. Two guys on my crew that we call them the backdoor guys, but they do whatever's necessary. They have the freedom to make decisions, but they're heading to the back door. They may or may not go in that back door, but anyway, that's just how we narrow it down. But on the way, I absolutely require them to take out a basement window, because there's a good chance if I got a lady screaming at me in the front yard, I'm not doing a 360. Call me incompetent, call me whatever you want. I'm not doing a 360. If she said there's someone in the door to the right, I'm going straight through the damn door, and I'm going to grab that person to the right. And it has been proven with me and Paul, that person may not be there, but I'm going to bank on it, because that's the best intel we have. So I want those two guys, the backdoor guys. I am always taking out a basement window. I'm not worried about anything, any reaction that I get from that basement window.
Computer charger for me.
Because 99% of our fires, we're taking 1 3/4 inches through the front door. Whether it's right or wrong, that's what's going to happen. 1 3/4 inches, followed by another one, even if it's still underpowered. So, and I would say 80 to 90% of the time, it was a year ago, we pulled a fireman line of duty death out of a basement for this. He fell through the floor. That's where we get hurt. That was a different city. That's where we get hurt too. We go in, you fall through the floor, you get hurt, or you burn up. It's a horrible situation. So my dad was 30 years on fighting way more fires than the generations that we're in now. He said, take that basement window. If it lights up, put it out before you go through the front door. Yeah, I'm saying hitting it hard from the yard. You put that out. There's nobody in that basement. If you have full fire venting out that basement window after my backdoor guys take that window out, there is no situation you're going to make worse in that basement for a possible survivor. If they're in the fire, it's going to make it better. If they're behind a door in a bathroom or a closed door, it's going to make it better. And for us trying to get to them, it's going to make it better. Everything is making it better. So I absolutely horizontal vent the basement, and I hope that gets done before, as we're going through the front door. And if those two guys, the backdoor guys, the guys that are actually getting a full 360, if they see anything in the basement, if they see fire in the basement, they're jumping on the radio, they're letting us know. That's because oftentimes we end up with confronted with wanting to make the basement, but they can't find the stairs, and incident command wants to throw a couple hand lines through the side door or the basement garage door around back that nobody else knew about because we were too focused on the front door. So that can't really happen now, and we're aware enough to know that can't happen coming down the stairs, and we can roast those guys. So it really makes things hard by doing that horizontal ventilation of the basement early on in the fire, putting that thing in check. If you do have fire down there, and at least knowing what's underneath you, I think makes it a lot safer. Fire that a lot of us do, that that 2- and 3-story house, and I tell you, it's paid off dividends for me. That was a nugget of advice I got from my dad, and I've stuck to it. And most people don't rebut me on it, but I've never had it go bad.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. And I think we mentioned it before, Chad. I think you were on here. That is usually done. Our captains, first in or second in, when they're doing 360s, will usually either kick in the basement door real quick if they can, or break a window. That was taught to me and him in our battalion when we first came on, and you'll see that for the most part. Make sure you're not going above a basement fire. So that's awesome that you brought that up. Ron, you want to speak on? You got anything to add on horizontal vent?
No, just like I said, that we were kind of forced into it. When we were riding 4 guys, we would send the chauffeur and the firefighter behind him to the roof, and it was just there was a position that was filled, just because we could. And now since we have basically the outside team is going to be the chauffeur by himself, so it's like Chad's backdoor guy. You get to the back, you force the scissor gates off, because we have scissor gates on almost every house in the city. and force, back doors always fortified. So try to force open the back door, do a sweep of that, and then outside vent, to your best of your ability. I mean, you can't really know all the time. You can't always, sometimes guys don't take the ladder with them initially, but typically second story, they're going to take at least a straight ladder with them in case they need to get up there, for, a porch roof or something. So again, it's out of necessity. It wasn't planned.
Yeah, no, that sounds like we're similar to most people, and it sounds like we're very similar how we operate. If the hook and ladder doesn't have the back open, or we get there before them, we'll get that open. And sounds like we're all pretty much on the same page. Kevin Potter, if you want to explain a little more about what we do, so they don't just have to listen to me talk all night on St. Louis stuff, or Tim. But go ahead, Mark. You want to talk about horizontal vent?
Biggest thing is getting in there. My thing is just making sure you don't vent before the hand line's ready to go. I've been there, done that, popped a big window in front because the guy had the line on the front porch, and then next thing you know, they had water issues and everybody was bailing off the front porch because somebody didn't pull all the pre-connect out of the cabinet and kinked up. So, but it's just going in there. We deal with all the windows getting smashed out in these houses, and then it's trying to isolate and compartmentalize the house to get good ventilation down the road. But I mean, hydraulic ventilation does great. 1 3/4 inch with the fog, it can pull a lot of smoke out.
Yeah, I'd say pretty much majority of our fires, as soon as the nozzleman gets that fire knocked down, we hydraulically vent. That's our thing. I will say, even in my short time on, half the time you got, Mark, or less than that, we've gotten better about not breaking every window out at every fire. So, in another 5-10 years, maybe the discipline will be a little better. It'll be there. So, but we're right along with Webb. I think we do our in horizontal vent 90% of the time while guys are making searches, as they go. We do have an outside team, and they'll take care of that as they go. But Jared, we haven't gotten a more rural perspective on this for a while. You always got great stuff to say, buddy. Or Smurf, whatever the fuck your name is. You walked away. I got you back.
Smith.
Yeah. Enlighten me what it was.
No,
Smith.
Fuck you.
Sorry.
You're not paying attention. What are you doing? Oh, I see that finger. Hey, no. So from the rural perspective, horizontal vent in your world.
Horizontal vent, I mean, that's a go-to. It's easy. For me in particular, James, who's on here, and I'd love to hear him speak up, Doc, he's my OV. So for him, he's listening, he's watching, he's doing his own size up. He's making the call when to take the window or to start the fan or whatever. Like I said a while ago, if we pull up and you get that gut feeling of why waste a vertical vent when we can just vent it flat, then we make that call right then, and then him and the chauffeur work together to get it accomplished. Horizontal vent is easy for everybody. Well, I should say within some scope. It's generally accepted. Everybody's fairly comfortable with it. They understand how it works for the most part. I think the biggest problem you run into is, not understanding how the building is isolated or how to isolate the building to make it effective. But yeah, that's the easy one. Horizontal's easy.
Hey, Jared, real quick. So I don't know if anybody saw the Instagram post that I made. Jared actually sent me those pictures. Were you on that fire?
No.
Okay.
No, I had literally seen that a few minutes before when you asked for those pictures. And that's a great example. That was a perfect example of not working.
So I just completely stole somebody else's pictures and posted them.
Absolutely. Yeah, we patronized the crap out of somebody.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. I guess my whole point in saying that was, I don't know if, and again, I don't know how many people saw this and how many people didn't. I don't know if that's enough smoke necessarily for us in St. Louis City to justify a vertical vent. Is that something that you would put guys on the roof for? What's that?
Why?
I have no idea.
What's that, Jared?
So you did that, Tim. You sent me helmet cam video. I know better. Your helmet cam video. I know what you.
Oh,
they just mentioned this Instagram post. I just pulled it up.
Oh, I don't even know who's talking now.
All right, hold on. We got some people that jumped in that were unmuted, so it kind of cut off your question.
Okay.
Tim, it's hard for the to judge it from that one picture, but if you watch that whole video from Houston, I'll send it to you. You know, it was significant smoke. We would have cut it.
Oh, and I think the reason I asked is because I thought when Jared sent me those pictures, I thought he was on that fire. That's the only reason I was asking. I'm not trying to armchair quarterback this.
No, I wish I was on that fire. I don't fight fire, Tim.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
We've already accomplished that. All the roofs Jared's on is with you, Tim, when we're teaching.
Right. I'm Jared's roof partner.
Yeah.
So, all right. You know, anybody got anything else they want to add?
Yeah, I like to ask Dave, you know, does that mustache give you more confidence on the fire ground?
You know, I feel like I shaved it off at the beginning of this COVID thing to make my wife happy, and I instantly felt like I was less of a fireman because of it. So,
Hey, Chad, the cool thing about Dave's mustache is it smells and tastes like purple sweet tarts because he vapes.
Hey, Jeff, I just
know how it smells.
That's a story for another time. But hey, Jeff, I just wanted to throw this out there too. Like, I'm in the same spot as some of the guys out in the rural area where I volunteer. You know, we're running a fire with like 4 or 5 people, and so there's times where, as a company officer, we'll go in and start making a hit on the fire, and our drivers will ghost pump. I mean, they'll sit there and get the pump going. They'll get the water in the line, and the next thing you know, they're calling on the radio saying, "Hey, are you guys on the Bravo side? I'll knock a window." So I think a lot, you know, like we're on the completely opposite side of the KC Metro from Paul and Chad and those guys and John. So they put it out just by sheer number of people. They put enough people in house. There's no more available oxygen. The fire goes out. You know, we have to use.
There's a little skill
what we have, which isn't a lot. Yeah, no, I get it. But no, so I mean, you know, and then on the career side, I mean, I'm in a house with five firefighters, so that's usually what we got on our first alarm assignment, and it'll be 10 or 15 minutes before we get more help. So a lot of it is just coming back to, you know, if I got a driver, if we have somebody that can fill that position for the outside vent, it's great. Otherwise, I'm going to knock it myself from the inside with a tool, or I'll have the driver do it and they can ghost pump for a few minutes.
Yeah, and it's awesome to have that perspective, and that's where I started. You know, less people, more delayed response, and you guys, I say it every class, and I've heard Chad say something similar, but I tell Jared, you guys got to be better than all of us, you know, because if I make a mistake, I mean, I ride with more people in my one truck to a fire than you have on your whole shift. So Chad's the same boat. So I always say, man, you guys ride with 2, 3 people and 6, 7 people. You got to be better at this job than I do. I make a mistake, there's 29 other people right there to pull me out or get my back. We stretch to the wrong place. You know, there's 5 fire trucks. You know, damn, we ran into other fire trucks going to fires. We're so close together. I mean,
yeah, I've seen the videos.
I think everybody's seen that video.
Everybody's
seen that video.
There's rural areas of our city that will be like that. They'll be there with 1 or 2 companies, one company for 3 or 4 minutes, 2 companies for 5 to 6 minutes, which is an eternity when you're fighting fire by yourself. And honestly, if there's anyone on here that doesn't want to be in that position, you probably lost your drive, because I would love to show up as 4 people to put out a fire. It's all the works for me. I don't want that for the homeowner, but that's a dream to not have.
We get 9 people. I always say we get 9 people, and then we get on a still alarm. We get 2 engines in a truck. Everything's got 3 on it. And if it's a warehouse fire, we just get more high fives.
That's a cool thing. Ron does that in an urban environment with the old building stock and high fortified stuff. That's all stuff we take for granted in these larger departments with, let's say, appropriately staffed equipment. And then you got Chicago that just has 5 on everything, and that's even better. So, we're blessed. But back to some vent things that popped up, and you guys could speak. 2 things that you find out the hard way. Someone mentioned that Lexan glass, but if there's window bars on there and you're going to vent that window, try and take those window bars off first, pry them off or whatever you do before you break the window, or else you're going to eat it trying to get those bars off. You find that out the hard way. Chad, you don't know this yet, but get the gang together in a couple weeks. We're going to do a forcible entry one. So,
oh shit,
we should have a pretty good one for there if you guys are willing to do that with us. And then
yeah, absolutely. We'd love to get in on that, and I feel like we have a lot of guys to weigh in on that. A couple more things on the horizontal bit. One thing I learned, a couple valuable things I learned from old guys. I remember when I was advancing one of my first hand lines to one of my first fires, this old guy's knocking out windows next to me, telling me what to do, because he didn't want to put a mask on and come inside because it was a 1,000 square foot house. And he's like, go to the back. He's like, if you don't know where it is, he had me turn the line and he had me hydraulically vent a window until the fire showed up at me so I could see where to go. So, I mean, that just taught me something. That taught me about how the fire works, how air moves. When he busted that window out, he's like, put your line on this window, follow my voice. I did it, and guess what showed up in my face? The fire marched right down the hallway, and now I know where to go. And it made things better from where the nozzle was behind me. Another thing I learned from Tom Byrne, and he learned from guys before him, and I'd seen it done a few times beforehand, but Tom Byrne really implemented. Tom Byrne was a chief of mine who passed away, drug-related cancer. He really implemented this after he had one of his firefighters drug out of a fire with, I think, about 50% burns, pretty much unconscious, not breathing. I was sitting in church with his wife when it happened. I saw the text. Church stopped, 1,000 people in a sanctuary, and I knew why it stopped. It was a horrible Sunday morning. And Tom was standing there to watch his firefighter be drug out like that. He's in a coma for about 3 or 4 weeks. After that, Tom sent his guys into the second floor of a 3-story apartment building, uncertain of what's going on. He swears there was they had like 2-liter bottles or balloons hung up with gasoline, maybe. But he doesn't swear by that. But he anticipated that it was booby trapped. But regardless, what he took from that is when he was uncomfortable as a battalion chief, he had no problem doing the same thing when Tibetan died, who died on the job too. He would pull all his captains out and ask them to get their shit together and ask them what their plan was. He wouldn't necessarily tell them their plan. He's like, you guys need a better plan because I don't see shit happening in there. But then he would take a truck company, and at this point, he would vent every horizontal vent there is. He would like open every opening there is on this son of a bitch. I want to see what's going to happen. I want to see what it's going to do. Once you give it all the air possible and the fire reacts, then he made a plan with his captains. As a chief, he would go to his captains like, what do you think? I think I can get it. He's like, and either yeah, you can, or I think you're full of shit. You got about a minute and a half. And but what I learned from that is sometimes maybe you hold up, and depending on the circumstances, you vent in a couple strategic places to see what that fire is going to do, to see what you got going on, and then you commit your crews. And especially at the point where crews have come rolling out the front door, and you're having to regroup. For horizontal vent, take everything and see what you're dealing with.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And just because you get pulled out doesn't mean you're staying defensive. I mean, sometimes you got to pull it out, get things reorganized, see what the fire's going to do. So that's awesome.
A life lesson there, baby.
Mute him, Jeff.
Yeah. No, that's well done. I probably should have chosen my words more carefully. So I'll take the blame for that one, and all your bourbon or whatever you're drinking. All right. If you're at break windows though, make sure we're clearing everything out. Anybody want to speak on that, or anybody doing something different? Or
Hey, Jeff, before you get started, I got to take up the old lady's yelling at me. So I love you guys. I had a good time.
Hey, thanks, buddy. We got to get you back on here.
Love you, Ron. See you, buddy.
Go weed eat the yard, Ron.
Take it easy, Ron.
Good seeing you, Ron.
Take care, Ron.
Yeah, quick story on that. We had a company that they made a rescue second floor on a 3-story Main Street style building. Experienced captain, they took a window out. The guy was laying like right there inside the window on a bed, just pushed up against the wall. Drug him out. I mean, they cut him all to pieces. I mean, it was embarrassing. I mean, the guy lived, but we put more stitches in him than Smokey took, I mean, it was bad. It looked really like unprofessional. That was I wasn't on that fire, but I rolled by and seen the blood, on the sill plate. But yeah, that's clean the window out, no doubt, for us and them.
Yeah, I mean, and there's times and places where, you're taking a beating or fire starts licking out and you can't stand there because of the heat. But, I'm with you, man. You look at a building that still has glass left intact and the sash and all that, first a cleared out, trimmed window, so to speak, is the term I've always used or heard. I think that looks a lot better.
Yeah, it just looks unprofessional with shards of glass hanging out. Where they say break and rake, I think.
Break and rake. Oh, that's a good one too.
I think a lot of people, they think they're just venting for the smoke, but we're also venting for egress, and not only what's happening at the current point in time, but what could be happening, down the road. And at some point in time, good captains like, Chad and Captain Potter, they beat that into these guys. And I know, like, when I go to open a window, I'm going to clean that window out. And it's just a principle of the matter, because I know what could happen. And that kind of goes back to what I was talking about with the roof opening. Like, I'm going to get something open. I don't know if it's going to be the biggest hole. I don't know if it's going to be the best hole, but I'm going to come off that roof with something open, because I know that's what I went up there to do. So I think just instilling that in these newer guys and guys that are coming onto the job and asking questions about all that stuff. I mean, it's not always about what's going on at the certain point in time that you're doing it. It's about what could happen in the future. So that's something to keep in mind as well.
No, and it was on my list to bring up. So I thought glad you taught about egress, clear the window in case guys got to get out in a hurry. But I think someone needs to speak on, venting for life versus venting for fire, and the differences. And I hate to use flow path, but the difference it does to the fire, the two different methods.
Actually, I want to talk about that a little bit, and then Chad or one of you other guys with way more experience pitch in. We just recently had a discussion on multi-family residential or large residential, nursing home, whatever. Showing up, do I commit 3 guys to trying to empty this whole building in rescue mode, or would it be more beneficial for me to go to the roof, get that up and out, and focus on that aspect so that they can self-rescue, or we can put people in the building that aren't firemen, so to speak, cop, EMS, God forbid, But what are your thoughts on that? You know, venting for life immediately versus committing straight to rescue. Anybody have anything on that?
Well, I know with with St. Louis City Fire Department, when you're talking high rise, our priorities change from rescue to extinguishment, just because of the potential for life loss. So I kind of see where you're going with it. I mean, if you got 60, 70, 80 people in a building, your priority's got to be extinguishment, even if you got people hanging out windows. I mean, that's what I've been taught, and that's kind of what our SOGs follow. I don't know if Jeff, you got anything you want to add to that?
I think it's two different questions. You know, we've done it several times. People hanging out the windows. You know, more people might be trapped, so you might split your company and send one guy the ghost pump, or send one guy instead of making a plug, he'll throw a ladder, and the other guy, the captain, will start a search, and the leadoff guy's got to get that line into place. But to your point, Jared, on those bigger buildings, and I tell people a lot when we go, you've heard it, when we go teach these places that have ginormous houses, like their houses are equal to 2 or 3 of our houses. I think, especially if it's newer construction, you're going to be better off getting up to that roof and cutting the roof, and it'll actually be quicker, in my opinion, than trying to take out a bunch of windows for horizontal vent, you know, these McMansions and stuff. Fortunately, we don't have to deal a lot with it. What I wanted people to speak on for the Vent for Life, for Vent and Fire, you know, was basically along the lines of, if we're venting just for fire, yeah, then maybe we'll leave stuff intact a little bit longer and all that. But we go to these houses with confirmed people trapped, or we're on the inside searching for people trapped, and it's, you know, not high heat, but zero visibility. I'm breaking every window I come to get a better search in that room. I could shut the bedroom door behind me. I don't care about what the fire behavior is doing necessarily, because we work with very aggressive engine guys that are always, you know, we may search away from the line, quote unquote, ahead of the line, but those guys are putting water in there. There's water coming very, very quick behind us, or most of the time in front of us. So that's what I was getting at. Like, are you guys doing different things at fires, or are you always venting for, you know, as you see fit or as you need?
So Jeff, I'll speak on that for a second.
Perfect.
All right. So like when and I grew up underneath a captain that he was real big on, you know, customer service and Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which is great. But he was always worried about breaking windows, and, you know, hey, if you break the whole window out, take the sash, you know, you're breaking their stuff. And it always stuck out in my head that after every fire that we went to with this guy, we'd go back and watch as the construction crews were ripping out all of the windows and installing new ones after the fire. And so, having grown up with that, you know, when I got into a little bit further into my career, it really didn't make any sense. If I got to take a window, I'm going to take the whole fucking window. And, you know, if there's a need for me to cover that window back up, I got closet doors that I can drop off and put up against the window. We had a grab that we made back in like 2014, like mid 2014. It was like a 104-year-old woman. We grabbed her out of a bedroom. We couldn't go back the way we came in. And so we ended up having to go into a room and shut the door. And knowing how we were going to vent kept us from getting into a bad situation, because we shut the door, isolated it, and then we took the whole entire window out of this room on the A side and put her out the front window. But when we did that, if you turn around and look, you saw fire shooting underneath the door, because we completely changed the flow path. So, you know, I don't ever want to go halfsies. You know, if I'm going to take a window, I'm just going to take the whole window and know that I'm going to change the flow path and control what I need to control. So I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it wasn't necessarily a question. Is more to stir up a conversation point, and that's good stuff. You know, I agree. Sounds like you did everything. I could speak for most of the people in here that any of these other firemen would do, you know, in that situation.
What about like venting for life versus fire? I mean, you're going to be looking at what probably venting for life, more bedrooms and compartmentalized spaces within the structure versus the livable spaces, right?
Yeah, agreed.
So yeah, I mean, y'all looking at that and teaching your guys that, you know.
The academies I've been associated with, absolutely. Yeah, I show them dudes, but I can't. I haven't taught them all, obviously, and you know, Chad or any of the Kansas Paul, we haven't heard from you in a while. You want to speak on it at all with that awesome background photo?
Paul's ambient kicked in.
Oh, we're getting late, man. But it's good, man. It's been some awesome conversation.
No, just vent for life, vent for fire. You know, the job and the task that I have, I'm mainly going through a back door or through, you know, the front door or a window for venting or search. So my task on the ground is I'm taking a window or I'm opening a door. Sometimes it's going to cause that cross ventilation, no matter what. There's some times that, you know, I can wait before I go through the back door. If I wait until I hear water flowing, you know, then I'm okay to open it and go in. But my primary task is search on the crew that I'm on. And, you know, so I'm going to be taking those doors. I'm going to be taking those windows, you know, because I'm there for life. That's why I'm there. That's my first task. That's my first job. You know, to sit there and think, well, should I take this window out now or open this door now, you know, or do I wait, you know, until they got the roof open? You know, that's not something that I'm not really too worried about in the beginning stages of things, because I'm there for the life. I'm there for looking for the people, and having opened the back door up, I've got to pull a couple of people out, and they're right there. And if I would have waited, you know, any longer, you know, things could have been worse. Well, to be honest with you, they were worse. They did end up dying, unfortunately. But you know, you just got to be smart. You got to be smart with it. You got to know what's going to happen when you open that window, when you open that door. You got to take everything in, know what fire's going to do, know how it's going to push. And, you know, hopefully, you know, luckily I work on an apartment big enough to where somebody's going through the front door, I'm going through the back door, and water's getting thrown within, you know, a minute or so, hopefully, you know, once they enter through that door. So I've been in the houses a couple of times where water hasn't been going for a couple minutes because there's something that happened at the pump. They were having water problems, and then, you know, you gotta be really smart about your size up and knowing where you were and know where you're going and what you're looking for. So, you know, I don't really have a whole lot more insight to really add on to that, you know, for the versus, you know, venting for fire, venting for life, because like I said, my primary job is life. And so I am going to open that window. I am going to open that door because that's why I'm there. So
No, that was a perfect response, Paul. I couldn't agree more, and I believe the most guys on here and girls on here would agree with you. I mean,
so Jeff, Paul's last several years of experience, a lot of grabs out of back doors and out of vent and search windows. He's been the back. Now we're front door, which means we find ourselves upstairs ahead of the hose line where my dad never said to go. He said, never go upstairs with the hose line. I feel that to not be applicable in today's fire service. And I base that on the people who pulled out of fires. So, but given that, when I go upstairs and I talked about my hood being loose, if I got to tuck my hood in, I'm usually going to be a landmark at the top of the stairs in that firefighter out to search a room. Or I'm going to shove a firefighter behind a door and I'm going to go in the next one past it. But knowing that we may have to go out that window, but we're not going to open nothing. We're up there with no water a lot of times on a second or a third floor with no water. And I don't want to punch a hole in the wall or open a window or do anything. I just want to get the search done and get out of there based on the conditions sometimes. So, you know, you don't always want to take that window and clear it all the way out. if you think you got bad conditions and you don't have water to back you up, if you're being aggressive enough and the conditions and the circumstances dictate you being that aggressive, then you don't want to open a thing. I've been there too, and it goes bad. So that's where we got to train firefighters to think on their own, decide how much risk they're going to take, and when it's applicable. Always open at every window you come across is not always going to help things.
Hey, that's a good point. And I was going to say some earlier, very similar, like maybe not taking windows if you're not sure what's going on below you. But you brought up an interesting point, and this isn't overhaul or anything like that. But if you feel the need to poke a hole on the floor above or whatever, while you're doing your search, do it inside a closet. If you don't have a line in place, do it inside a closet, because you can shut the door to that closet, hopefully, and it won't draw, it won't draw fire too far just into that closet. That's a good tip that was taught to me that, I figured I would share it. That's what this is all about. All right. Anybody got anything to add?
You gotta go outside. Let's go outside.
No, John, I'm good. I don't have to go outside. All right. Hey, let's start wrapping up. We've been going at it, close to 3 hours here, and people are starting to get pretty tired. So let's. Anybody got any final thoughts or any quick questions we can answer for you guys real quick?
Hey, Jeff, I just got on here. Can you start from beginning again, please, and just kind of start over? I kind of missed the first part of it.
Fucking Schaefer Cutter.
Hey, what's up, Cutter? Hey, man. Somebody asked if we can figure out how to repost. This is a Gary question. If we could post the Facebook Live so they could play it later. But if you are interested, I know you're being a smart ass, but we are going to have it up as a podcast at a later date.
That hurts.
It's the truth. Everyone gets hurt when it's the truth.
You don't have any feelings to get hurt. Don't worry about it.
I don't. Love you, Chad.
It's good to have you on here, Cutter, man. I didn't see you sneak in.
No, I just snuck in a little bit ago, man. I tried to catch the one. I was with you guys 2 weeks ago, I guess, at the firehouse and drinking and drive with the neighbors, and forgot this was on tonight. So I'm on the deck and listen to you guys, and it's awesome hearing the expertise and the experience that everybody has on here, except Daly. I mean,
everybody knows that Chad fella, but hey, you got anything you want to throw in before we get out of here? Obviously, we're not going to redo the whole 2 hour and 45-minute podcast because you couldn't set a schedule or a calendar reminder to get on at 7 o'clock. But you got anything you want to add, man? You got plenty of experience yourself.
No, man, I just join these things with you guys so I can learn. I mean, every class I've ever taught, I've never taught a class I have not learned something from. So listen to you guys and listen to the experience you guys have, the knowledge, and just the been there, done that, bought the t-shirt and told them how to make the fucking t-shirt. That's what's good for me, man. So thanks for doing this, guys. Appreciate it greatly.
No, it's been awesome, man. I'm picking up just as much. So if nobody's got any questions, Tim, are we pretty cut up in the chat there?
Yeah, I think so. Just a lot of shit talking.
Not well, even better. Hey, so if no one's got anything, thanks again, guys. Thanks for listening to the podcast 9 live Zoom. We'll be back with something next week. Unsure on the topic, and then since it's been requested, I'll get with Chad, and we're gonna hit all our original routes, all our truck work podcast, and see what's changed and what's new. And now that we got so many people from all over the place, I'm looking forward to more nights like tonight. And we had obviously Engine House guys, O'Byrne guys, Mellon, you do a ton of teaching, Take the Door, Truckee Talk, there's all sorts of people on here. So thanks. If we can help out in any way, reach out, and we'll talk to you guys later.
Yeah, thanks for having me, man.
Thanks, Jeff.
Hey, you're always all welcome. Anytime.
Thanks, Jeff.
Seeing you guys.
Thanks, Jeff.
All right,
See
you
you later.
want to